Hey guys, tonight we're not sailing with pirates, no creaking ships, no soggy boots, no suspicious parrots, silently judging your life choices from the rigging. Instead, we're drifting into something even stranger, even more unlikely, and honestly way more impressive. Tonight, we're stepping into the world of ancient Rome, but not the polished marble, toga glamorous Hollywood version. No, no. We're wandering into the real Rome, the chaotic, gritty, unpredictable world where fortunes flipped overnight, and where somehow a boy born the son of a slave rose all the way to the imperial throne. Because history has many surprises, but few are as astonishing as the rise of Emperor Pertinax, a man who went from obscurity and poverty to ruling the biggest empire on earth. And yes, he did it without fancy sandals, wealthy parents, or being adopted by a powerful uncle. Truly the original started from the bottom, now we're here. But before we walk the dusty streets of Rome and peek into the Senate's drama-filled group chats, go ahead and like the video and subscribe, but only if this kind of quiet, weird, mildly dramatic bedtime storytelling actually helps you unwind. If not, that's totally fine. Even the Romans didn't agree on everything, especially not after 3 cups of wine. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. It's always 2 a.m. somewhere. And if you're here, you're probably trying to fall asleep to the extremely cozy thought that at least you don't have to survive Roman politics, which was basically a full contact sport played with knives, grudges, and questionable hairstyles. Now dim those lights. Switch on a fan for that soft white noise breeze. Get comfortable. And maybe tuck your feet under a blanket, not because of rats this time, but because an imaginary Roman senator might wander by to loudly complain about tax reforms again. They were dramatic like that. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered what life felt like for someone born at the very bottom of the Roman social ladder? Someone who started life with nothing, no wealth, no status, no powerful family, but somehow climbed up through discipline, grit, intelligence, and a little bit of historical luck? What did it feel like to navigate a world where emperors didn't always last long, where soldiers decided fates, and where loyalty was about as stable as a chair with 3 legs? And how does a child of a slave end up ruling an empire that stretched from Britain to North Africa, from Spain to the Middle East, all while trying not to get stabbed by absolutely everyone around him? Tonight, we're going to drift gently into that world, not to glorify it, not to dramatize it, but to feel it softly, like torchlight flickering on marble, like sandals echoing down a quiet Roman street, like history whispering one of its strangest, most inspiring stories. So take a slow breath in, let the noise of your day fade, and imagine the ancient city spreading out before you, the markets, the temples, the whispers, the ambition, and at the center of it all, a man who should never have been emperor but became one anyway. Settle in, close your eyes if you haven't already, and let the story begin. Chapter 1, The Marble That Remembered a Man. And now, as your breath settles and the world around you softens into silence, let's drift into the fading light of the Roman Forum at dusk, a place where empires rise, crumble, and continue whispering long after their last emperor is dust. Picture this. A crumbling marble bust sits alone on a pedestal of cracked stone, its nose chipped, its features softened by centuries of wind and rain, its eyes hollowed out by time, yet somehow still carrying the weight of a life that once burned fiercely. This is the face of Pertinax, a man born to a slave, who climbed, step by stubborn step, into the unimaginable, the throne of Rome itself. The sky behind him shifts from gold to deep purple, casting long shadows between the broken columns. The ruins glow with that strange, ancient magic, the kind that turns every stone into a memory, every silence into a story waiting to be heard. The camera moves closer, not fast, not dramatic, just steady, as if the air itself knows it's approaching someone who earned respect in the most difficult way a Roman ever could, by living long enough to prove he deserved it. The bust's expression is weary, not the theatrical weariness of emperors carved for propaganda, but the tired, human weariness of someone who carried responsibility heavier than any statue could show. A man who grew up far from marble halls, who once swept floors instead of standing above them, who learned discipline not from tutors but from hunger, hard labor, and a father who knew the world seldom gives without taking. Around him, the Roman Forum stretches outward, half ruin, half memory. The Senate House casts a long shadow, arches crumble quietly in the fading light, and the ancient paving stones shimmer softly as if the footsteps of thousands still echo through them. Imagine the silence of this place, a silence so thick it feels like time itself is holding its breath, a silence that remembers more than any book the cheers of crowds, the cries of soldiers, the whispered conspiracies, and the final heartbeat of an empire that never really learned how to stay still. Now, picture Pertinax not as marble, but as flesh. A boy standing outside a villa where he wasn't allowed to enter. A teenager sweating beneath the sun as he trained, pushing past limits he didn't know he had. A young soldier rising through the ranks, not because he had connections, but because he survived every assignment that should have broken him. He didn't inherit power, he earned it. He didn't expect the throne. He was dragged to it, pushed by a desperate senate, a collapsing empire, and the ghosts of emperors who failed before him. The dusk deepens. The marble bust seems almost alive now, a silent witness to the moment when a slave's son became the most powerful man in the world, only to discover that the throne was less a seat of honor and more a trap waiting to close. The wind shifts. You can almost hear Rome breathing a long, low, ancient exhale that carries both pride and exhaustion. It brushes past the statue, through the broken pillars, and across the empty courtyard where Pertinax once walked with the weight of a dying empire on his shoulders. And in this moment, in this quiet, twilight-filled corner of history, you understand him. A man born at the bottom, a man who climbed to the top, a man who ruled not with spectacle, but with discipline, not with fear, but with the impossible hope that Rome could still be saved. Tonight, the marble remembers him, and so do we. Let the dusk settle. Let the forum fade. Let Pertinax's weary gaze guide you deeper into the story. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 2. The flickering light of ambition. Asterisk, asterisk. In the dimly lit workshop of ancient Liguria, the smell of oil wafted gently through the air, mingling with the faint whiffs of hard work and desperation. You're dropped into this bustling space in the year 193 AD, a time when the Roman Empire felt like a particularly rambunctious child who just discovered sugar. Congratulations. You've just woken up to find yourself in a workshop that feels like the mismatch of a Renaissance painting and a thrift store after a particularly wild yard sale. Picture it. Pertinax, a bright-eyed lad with tousled hair and an expression that oscillates between bewilderment and determination. He's seated at a crude wooden bench more suited for a medieval game of guess what's stuck to it. The oil lamp flickers back and forth like your will to stay awake during a boring lecture about the different types of vine plants. And in the flickering light, you can see him studying, books piled so precariously high they might qualify for a game of Jenga. If only Pertinax had a better library card. But here's a question for you. How does the son of a poor freed slave, toiling away in a workshop, evolve into an emperor? Do you think he had a motivational poster above his bench? Hang in there. You'll eventually overthrow the system. Or perhaps a fortune cookie that read, "Your future holds a throne. Don't forget the cushions." Life for young Pertinax wasn't exactly a leisurely stroll through the forum. Imagine using the wealth of knowledge in those books like part-time workout equipment, lifting them to gain wisdom and perhaps accidentally a few hernias. You could say the only thing heavier than those scrolls was the expectation of actually succeeding in a society that primarily recognized names like Julius and Augustus, not a lad whose claim to fame might have been how well he could make a clay cup without it collapsing, like his hopes of sleeping in tomorrow. Let's talk about the everyday wonders of Pertinax's life, shall we? He woke up every morning with the warmth of an oil lamp and the snores of his neighbors echoing like a serenade gone wrong. Breakfast? Forget about cappuccinos and croissants. It was probably some sort of porridge, lovingly known as the unspeakable sludge. Ever tried eating mush with a side of regret? When the only thing keeping that porridge together was thin air, you might as well call it nutritional transparency. And working in this workshop was no cakewalk. Imagine stubbing your toe on a tool that resembled more of a medieval torture device than anything else. Every clang of hammer on metal was a ritual that transformed your eardrums into a fine instrument of patience. Each day, Pertinax dreamed not just of becoming a recognized scholar, but rather contented with the reality of ardently wishing he could go back in time and tell Roman craftsmen, "Look, we need better working conditions. Where's our nap space?" Because really, what goes better with grease and metal than a cozy snooze zone? Let's not ignore the locals. If there's one constant in history, it's the group of side characters with their own delightful absurdities. You've got the local merchant, who prices things like he's selling organ transplants, and the neighbor who insists on defining proximity more broadly with their own brand of eavesdropping. Picture this. They're all whispering about Pertinax behind his back like they're characters in a soap opera. Did you hear his porridge looks extra gooey? Just like his chances of becoming a senator. If only they knew he was one oil lamp flicker away from changing Roman history forever. But in the quiet worry of night, that exhilarating thrill of uncertainty, came the stirring of his ambition. It was like the universe spritzed him with a dazzling dose of unrealistic expectations, which is rather ironic for a son of a slave. Amidst all the grueling work and nose-to-grindstone mentality, you couldn't help but ponder. What if he simply befriends a cat? Picture it for a moment. A crafty black feline curling around Pertinax's ankles as he studies, embodying the essence of Roman independence, yet still remaining completely aloof about his next meal. Listen, if I can train you to bring me scrolls instead of mice, we've got a solid plan here. Navigating through life in tumultuous times, especially when you're one misstep away from a potential political coup, is no easy feat. Each day was like a chess game, except when you forgot your pieces at home and had to negotiate using random fetch items from the workshop. I see your wooden plank and raise you a copper nail. What a dramatic twist! And just when you thought about drifting off into the delightful depths of sleep, dreaming of Pertinax's next grand adventure, or perhaps wondering if the cat will actually fetch that scroll, keep in mind, this whole charade was the foundation of one of those years where 5 emperors suddenly grappled for the title, like it was the most exciting round of musical chairs in history. So as you slip away into slumber, let your thoughts drift along with Pertinax. From humble workshop woes to an emperor's crown, honest desperation to delightful absurdity, because after all, what's history without a sprinkle of chaos and a dash of laughter? Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 3. The Schoolroom Shenanigans of Rome. Asterisk, asterisk. Welcome to the marbled colonnades and chaotic charm of a Roman schoolroom in 193 AD. The air buzzes with the energetic clamor of youthful exuberance, like a cauldron of caffeinated bees. This isn't just any classroom. This is a veritable gladiatorial arena of enthusiastic rhetoric and literature, where students wrestle not with swords, but with scrolls. Imagine yourself stepping into this raucous chamber like entering a chaotic Roman marketplace, but with fewer stalls and more bickering. Rows of wooden desks are haphazardly scattered about, resembling the aftermath of a particularly intense game of musical chairs. Each desk is littered with scrolls that look like they've had a rough night out, ink stains, fraying edges, and maybe a few fragments from last week's heated debate about the merits of figs versus pomegranates. Spoiler, figs won, but only because no one could pronounce pomegranate after too many rounds of Christ. Grape juice. At the helm of this perplexing educational ship is Pertinax, your patient, Grammaticus, who bears a striking resemblance to someone captured mid-yawn. With hair that defies all logic and an expression that feels half asleep and half resigned to a life of chaos, he stands among the noise. He clutches a scroll, gesturing dramatically as if he were attempting to juggle the very ideas of Cicero and Virgil while simultaneously untangling some deep philosophical concept about why the local goats seem to regard everyone as their personal audience. And there you are, watching these little bundles of Roman energy, the inquisitive ones scribbling furiously, the ones who've practically fused with their desks, and the few, almost mythic figures who seem to be engaged in a contest of extraordinary indifference. One boy is absent-mindedly throwing a piece of wax tablet at his friend, while another is convinced the best way to capture Pertinax's attention is to audibly ponder what makes a good toga. Ah, the eternal mysteries of youth. Let's take a moment to appreciate the peculiar interactions unfolding around you. Over in the corner, a budding philosopher is earnestly debating the finer points of whether hot baths are preferable to a quick dip in the Tiber. You lean in closer, you could swear this kid believes he has uncovered the meaning of life through the marvels of plumbing. But what if, he shouts, the tub is just a clam's version of a gilded cage? Wisdom of the ages, folks. If only he knew how that clam was living in his own version of Roman luxury. Meanwhile, Pertinax, with the grace of someone balancing a platter of grape cakes in one hand while lecturing with the other, attempts to restore order. Now, class, as we dive into the concept of rhetoric, remember that the best words are like wine. They should be prized, savored, and occasionally spilled on your toga for dramatic effect. At this, an eruption of giggles sweeps through the room like a refreshing breeze, untamed laughter that could float a ship. But amidst all this chaos, there lies an odd solace, a familiar sensation of youthful ambition and dreams. Close your eyes for a moment and listen. Feel that energy? It's like a Roman fitness class, but instead of crunches, they're doing intellectual backflips with a side of creative mutiny. These students thrive in the ebb and flow of ideas, while also figuring out which scroll could serve as an impromptu pillow if the afternoon drags on a bit too long. Quite frankly, it's a marvel to witness a room full of potential emperors trying to stifle yawns while simultaneously orchestrating daydreams about their own future thrones. And yes, nothing says lively education like a classroom occupied by future power players trying to one-up each other's aspirations while clawing over the last fig. It's the kind of vibe that would make any modern-day teacher think, why wasn't I prepared for, if you think your work meetings are chaotic? Picture attempting to wrangle 5 fiercely ambitious youngsters in a time when the terms class clown and future dictator could easily be interchangeable. Let's not forget the unfortunate souls who sit quietly, eyeing the energetic wrangling with expressions that suggest they might be the world's least enthusiastic audience at the most overhyped circus. With each scriptural debate held just above the necklines of their tunics, they ponder the existential crisis surrounding the true essence of parchment versus wax tablet. If I use this scroll to doodle a burrito, is that art, or am I wasting my future parchment career? Philosophy takes many forms, dear listener. As students send scrolls flying across the room, a vivid reaction sparks the scent of disaster looms large. Ink splatters the air as one mischievous youth aims for a seatmate's curly hair like a modern-day artist flinging paint. And there you are, in the flurry of scrolls and laughter, wondering if youthful rebellion is simply a rite of passage that every generation has undertaken, from ancient Rome to the nearest coffee shop seating arrangements. So, as you drift into the soothing oblivion of sleep, remember these moments under the Roman sun, a wild education where laughter and knowledge collide in a sensory delight akin to tasting gelato for the first time, drenching your senses in sweetness. Envision Pertinax juggling wisdom and mayhem with a conviction only the potential emperor of tomorrow can embrace. And in that delicious chaos, perhaps you'll find the comfort of ambition intertwined with youthful folly, the very stuff legends are made of. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 4, Pertinax and the Boundless Wonders of Roman Law. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight we embark on a journey that's more complex than figuring out how to operate a VHS player in a world dominated by streaming services. Grab your dream costumes, maybe a toga or a breastplate, and settle in, because we're diving deep into a delightful and mildly absurd chapter of Roman history. Now, as you prepare to nod off, let me ask you, have you ever pondered what it would be like to navigate legal bafflements without Google? Or picture this, a world where instead of filing taxes online, you had to deliver your scroll to a back room full of barter-happy bureaucrats who smell suspiciously of pickled fish? What about a gig that combines lawyering with managing a herd of sheep? Yes, Pertinax had quite the career before trading in his quill for a crown. Before we find out how this son of a slave ended up draped in imperial purple, let's dim the lights, turn up that fan for some dramatic breeze, and settle in. Imagine waking up in 193 AD. Congratulations. You've just opened your eyes to find yourself in ancient Rome, right in the middle of a legendarily turbulent year known as the Year of the Five Emperors. Now, that's a family reunion you won't be forgetting anytime soon. Let's take a moment to appreciate the wonders of the Roman legal system, shall we? Or as I like to call it, a comedy of errors in quill form. Picture yourself in a grand, leather-bound law book, feeling like an extra in a really dry courtroom drama. Its pages smell like old parchment, and as you flip through, you notice a quill pen resting confidently on a section about property rights. Ah, property rights, a topic so thrilling that it could put even the most ardent insomniac into a peaceful slumber. You'd think Rome, with all its impressive buildings and statues, would have a dazzling legal system to match. But instead, it often felt like trying to navigate a maze, constructed by that one friend who's always getting lost in IKEA. Law in Rome was akin to a chaotic improvisation performance. Everyone was winging it, but still somehow attempting to follow the script. Imagine attempting to soothe an audience comprised of toga-wearing senators while explaining why the neighbor's goat had moved onto your property like it was auditioning for a role in a new Greek tragedy. Pertinax, our law student extraordinaire, was there, in the thick of it. Straddling the realms of law and absurdity, he gave new meaning to the ancient adage, justice delayed is justice denied. With his briefcase full of scrolls and possibly an unlicensed collection of mysterious cheese, he tried to make sense of law books that were more confusing than a toddler trying to explain social media. Whenever he'd stand before a jury, a motley crew of toga-clad citizens, he must have felt like he was corralled into a circus ring. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you today's 8th case. He might announce, cue the circus music and the inevitable audience gasp. This is a melodramatic tale of lost cucumbers and disputed property lines. Now, in an era when due process sounds more like a recommendation for a Mediterranean diet than a series of legal proceedings, Pertinax had to navigate both his clients' tempers and their equally feisty goats. Did you know there were more goats per capita in Rome than lawyers in today's society? Okay, that might be an exaggeration, but you get the point. His career as a jurist was still in its nascent phase, like that one time you attempted to bake bread and ended up creating a brick harder than any legal textbook you could throw at it. Yet with every scribble, he sought not to lose sight of his goals. He understood that in the court of law, and frankly, in life, there were always loopholes. Like the time you realized half your email list was composed of expired subscriptions. Now, let's take a moment to consider how, in comparison to modern-day lawyers, Pertinax had it a bit rougher. Imagine handing in cases just as your only source of energy consists of old sandals, which you've also mistaken for court shoes, and olive oil, hoping the two together don't equal a courtroom kerfuffle. What a time to be alive, huh? Whenever he encountered a difficult case, Pertinax must have observed colleagues scratching their heads like lost chickens, sharpening their quills in frustration while muttering, "How do I argue this?" If smart assistants existed back then, he would have been asking them for the ultimate Roman gossip on next week's court case instead, and maybe how to get a goat to stop eating the verdant courtyard outside the courthouse. Classic Pertinax. And speaking of mischief, you can just imagine the aftermath of tense legal debates. They were probably much more chaotic than a cat wearing a toga during a storm. As the arguments carried on, and lawyers raged about ink flying, in mad circles one could hear the laughter of the people. Yes, the law was often very serious business, but there was also plenty of chuckles at the sheer absurdity of it all. Picture a group of toga-wearing jurors trying to mediate between two farmers claiming ownership of the same plant because it's still waiting on its paperwork. And as you settle into this delightful historical tapestry, infused with absurdity, know that it's all building toward greater glory and, spoiler alert, an imperial destiny for our friend Pertinax. Formidable laws, quirky litigants, and unexpected twists await as he navigates his way toward the throne. In the revelry of laughter, chaos, and the occasional ink splatter on a toga, Pertinax was learning not just the laws that govern the empire, but preparing to test the boundaries of power itself. He might have entered the courtroom bearing the burdens of a slave's son, but softly and steadily, the future Roman emperor was stirring with every quill stroke. And remember, as you drift further into slumber, you too have embarked on an epic journey of lively legalities, absurd goat ownership disputes, and the promise that Pertinax's true tale is just beginning to unfold. Asterisk, asterisk, Chapter 5, A Day in the Life of Centurion, Pertinax, asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight our journey is hotter than a pizza oven on a bustling Roman street corner. Buckle up your sandals, folks, because we're diving headfirst into the sun-soaked chaos of a military camp in 193 AD, where fierce discipline meets unexpected hilarity. Imagine trying to find your marching orders while squinting into the sun like a confused owl. Before we get rolling, take a moment to like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoy this historic ride. And remember, if you don't, you can always blame it on the goats that keep eating your scrolls. Now, as you're settling in, ask yourself this. What would it be like to receive your first ceremonial sword? Your hands trembling like a tourist on a windy cliff? And what about the unexpected pomp, the ceremonial chants, and the ever-present smell of questionable stew wafting in the background. Let's dim the lights and get comfy. Close your eyes for just a moment and picture this. You've just woken up in a military camp under the glaring sun, surrounded by the flapping of tents like a flock of particularly rude ducks. The year is 193 AD, which is about as civilized as a toga party gone wrong. You find yourself surrounded by centurions with more muscles than a fish market during salmon season, ready to greet you with a warm embrace of camaraderie, also known as a hearty slap on the back that could knock the wind out of a horse. You can feel the grit of the sandy ground beneath your feet, and if you listen closely, you might just hear the distant sounds of men shouting orders, the unmistakable clink of armor, and the rhythmic thump of boots marching in irritatingly perfect formation. Yet here you are, wondering if breakfast consists of stale bread or actual bread that someone stomped on. Spoiler alert, it's likely the former. As the sun climbs ever higher and starts turning your skin into bacon, enter Pertinax, our newly minted centurion. He stands tall and proud. If you squint, you might even see him stretching his neck like a regal flamingo, preparing for battle. Alas, he's not here for battles just yet. Today is an important day. Today, Pertinax is receiving a ceremonial sword. Imagine the anticipation bubbling in the air, mixed with the smell of sweat and the faint odor of burning sausages, only slightly more ancient than your average corporate office potluck. As the high-ranking officer approaches, sword in hand, the gathering crowd hushes. You can practically hear a feather drop as everyone leans in like they're at a particularly exciting game of dice. And here, across the makeshift stage of dusty earth, the officer presents the ceremonial sword. It glistens like a fresh slice of mozzarella, but let's hope it doesn't come with a side of moldy bread. Pertinax stands there, embodying every centurion stereotype you could imagine. Stern face, toned arms, and an expression that says, yes, I'm deeply serious about this. But also, I could crush a melon with these biceps. You might imagine a line of well-rehearsed speeches about honor, bravery, and probably the proper way to fold a toga, but instead, there's a peculiar sense of absurdity in the air. As the sword is handed over, you can't help but think it resembles a makeshift prop from a low-budget historical play. You half expect Pertinax to unsheath it and pretend to slay an imaginary dragon. Beware, villains of Rome. I come armed with great enthusiasm. Next comes the moment of absolute hilarity. The officer, in a voice that could certainly land a gig in a tragic opera, begins a lengthy and convoluted introduction filled with accolades and praise, while Pertinax nervously adjusts his toga like he's about to hit the dance floor at a lively wedding. Does he break into a pirouette? Nope. Just awkwardly fumbles with his sword and nearly drops it. Now, standing proudly with his newly acquired weapon, Pertinax may think he's ready to storm the battlefield, but in reality, the most confrontation he's likely to face today is an angry goat that just won't stop nibbling on the ropes of his tent. No, not again, he might mutter under his breath, glancing nervously at his fellow centurions, who are trying not to laugh as they recall the last time a goat managed to dismantle his entire command structure. Every second in the hot sunlight feels like an eternity, and you can't help but wonder, what happens next? Does he go on to teach centurions about the fine art of goat wrangling? Or perhaps he'll reveal the secret to adapting military strategies based on the unpredictable temperament of livestock? Ah, the true mysteries of commanding the Roman legions. You can almost hear the defeated sigh of the enchanted sword as it witnesses the colorful absurdity unfold before its very eyes. Imagine receiving a sword that could lead you to glory, only to watch your new, commanding officer almost trip over his shoes while making a dramatic speech about honor. What a hoot. In this hilariously warm military camp, you might find yourself chuckling at the sheer absurdity of it all, as Pertinax prepares to face whatever Roman shenanigans await. Somewhere in the distance, another centurion is trying to divvy up provisions while having a heated debate with a chicken, a real comedy of errors in the making. And as you drift off into a gentle slumber, remember this. Sometimes history really is more absurd than we could ever imagine, and there's a comforting humor in the chaos. Sleep tight, dear friends, and may your dreams be laced with the amusing mischief of centurions and their ever-present goat troubles. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 6. Snow and spectacles at the Danube frontier. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, We're taking a frosty stroll through the snow-dusted camps near the Danube, where the air is icier than your favorite blade of steel at a blacksmith's convention. Trust me, folks, this historical journey is about as chill as a polar bear in a hot tub. Seriously, if you can manage to stay awake through the delightful absurdities of history that lie ahead, you deserve a medal. Preferably one that's made of something more valuable than tin. Because let's be real, tin medals don't exactly scream, "I'm a winner." Before we slip and skid our way to ancient history, take a moment to like, subscribe, and comment, only if you find our icy escapades mildly hilarious. If not, you can always pin it on that poorly cooked breakfast burrito you had this morning. As you cozy up, allow your mind to roam. What would you do in the midst of a battle-hardened legion poised against a backdrop of shiny helmets and possibly questionable decisions? Ever wonder how those centurions managed to look so serious while their sandals squished through mud like a long-forgotten piece of ancient pizza? Let's dim the lights, crank the heater, or your imagination, we're not picky, and settle into the scene. Picture this. You've just awakened from a slumber that felt longer than a Roman general's speech about the wonders of aqueducts. Congratulations. You've just found yourself on the Danube frontier in 193 AD, surrounded by a gaggle of grumpy soldiers clad in armor and noise, with more clanking than a poorly oiled gate in a medieval haunted house. The sky above is gray, brooding, and perfectly attuned to your current mood, because who doesn't love a good snow day in enemy territory? The camp is a beehive of activity, with centurions marching around like they own the place. Spoiler alert, they kind of do. The scent of damp wool mingles with burning wood, and somewhere off in the distance, you can hear the disgruntled bleating of a goat who clearly didn't get the memo that today might not be a food decorating competition. Let's take stock of your surroundings, shall we? The ground is crunchy beneath your feet, more like a snow globe has been kicked over than a military fortress. Feel that? That's the thrill of slipping and sliding, wondering if your survival hinges on the competence of everyone around you, including the goats. Just hope they can't organize a coup. Now, enter our protagonist, Centurion Pertinax. He's strutting like a rooster on a mission to earn the respect of his fellow soldiers while trying not to trip over the errant leg of a tent and land face first into an unfortunate pile of rations. Imagine him standing tall, his armor glinting in the weak winter sunlight. You can almost see the determination in his eyes and the faint glimpses of panic that flicker across his face as he contemplates the realities of leading his men through a wilderness filled with dangers and predictable slapstick moments. So what's the plan, you ask? Let's dive into the delightful daily routine of Pertinax and his legion. It's not all blood and glory. There's a fair share of ridiculousness too. First, let's talk about breakfast, aka the most important meal of the day. Unless it consists of cold porridge and amusingly stale bread. You can almost hear someone bellow, "Who forgot the honey?" as they scrape their bowls clean with the look of defeat. As Pertinax attempts to muster his men for action, the air is punctuated by the sound of men affectionately arguing over the direction of their morning exercises. Imagine them puffing and grunting like a prehistoric wrestling match. Don't forget to stretch, Lucius. Stretch. I can barely feel my toes. It's a comedy of errors, as someone tries to show off their bicep bonanza, only to accidentally knock over a barrel of pickled fish. Why, yes, we meant to engage in some olfactory warfare, my friends. Just as things seem to be going wrong on a variety of fronts, as is the norm for a century in ancient Rome, a snowflake flutters down from the sky, landing dully in the middle of their chaotic camp. Surprisingly undeterred, Pertinax proposes a day of training, as though he thinks he's in an action film and not a calamity waiting to happen. "Let's march off to battle," he declares, only to trip over his own shield. Yes, it's a glorious moment that's been immortalized only in his fellow soldiers' collective memories, as the day Pertinax knelt before his sandwich. As the snow crunches beneath their feet, the novellas of history contend that the soldiers marched with more poise than purpose, as they awkwardly tried to coordinate their footfalls in the slippery mess. Add to the mix a farmer's confused goose that decided to join the squad, honking with glee as it chased after Pertinax. Suddenly, our centurion's combat drill has turned into a slapstick comedy routine, with him dodging honks and flailing arms like an extra from a far too ambitious silent film. Before you close your eyes, remember life as a legionary wasn't merely about war. It was also about livestock that could accidentally sabotage your best laid plans. comical mishaps that brought knee-slapping laughter and the joy of shared camaraderie, even when your teammate might just be a goat. So, as you drift off into slumber, let these images carry you into a dream filled with wanted misadventures and maybe even a historical goat or two. Sleep well, dear friends. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 7. Pertinax and the Supply Line Shenanigans. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight we embark on a journey so dry and dusty, it would make even the Sahara jealous. Picture this, a vast, arid expanse somewhere in Syria, where our star one young Pertinax is stretching his arms as he oversees the supply lines for the Roman legions in the east. Trust me, it's like watching a game of Tetris being played in real time, but with less falling blocks and more questionable decisions. So grab a glass of warm milk, or maybe something a bit stronger, and settle in. Tonight's history is funny enough to put a smile on your face right before you drift into dreamland. Now, before we dive into the delicious absurdity of history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and maybe comment about your favorite historical goof-up, only if you genuinely enjoy this, of course. If not, feel free to blame it on that dodgy taco you had last week as you dim the lights and cozy up under your favorite blanket. Think for a second. Have you ever tried giving directions to someone who absolutely refuses to read a map? Or how about coordinating a potluck dinner where every dish mysteriously ends up being potato salad? Imagine doing that while supervising a legion, where the stakes are a bit higher than having to throw out a bad casserole. What would a supply line manager even do if his main shipment came in, well, let's say, rather less than fresh? And how do you handle grumpy soldiers with an appetite worth crossing the Rubicon? Congratulations. You've just awakened in 193 AD, in a dusty expanse filled with the clear skies of Syria. Welcome to the year of the 5 emperors, a time when political chaos was the main course of the Roman Empire's meal plan, garnished with a healthy dollop of what on earth just happened. You've landed smack dab in the middle of it all, where the only thing thicker than the air is the tension. The sun is blazing overhead, shining down on a rand, chaotic scene where Pertinax, armor gleaming like a caffeinated magpie, is trying his best to juggle supply lines amid an orchestra of marching soldiers and the distant clanging of metal hitting metal. You can hear everything shouting, laughter, and somewhere nearby, a goat that really needs to reevaluate its life choices. The air smells like sweat and sagebrush, with a side note of fried bread that might just be the best thing to come out of this whole situation. Now, let's talk logistics. Being a supply line overseer is much like being a cat herder, except the cats are armed with short swords and a general disposition to revolt if someone even dares suggest a gluten-free option for lunch. Pertinax has to ensure that food, weaponry, and last week's questionable leftovers get to the right people. Ever tried to get good service at a restaurant on a busy night? Multiply that confusion by a few hundred snappy soldiers and you're nearly there. Picture Pertinax, pacing back and forth, his hands animatedly waving like a conductor amidst a rather uncoordinated symphony. "General," one of his soldiers bellows, and you can practically feel a collective inhale of breath. The shipment of lentils is 3 days late. Now, in modern day terms, that's akin to discovering your favorite coffee shop ran out of beans right before a Monday morning meeting. Panic sets in, eyebrows furrow, and you can bet that more than a few grumpy faces will grace the mess tent if lunch is just air and disappointment. In a truly this is going to end badly moment, Pertinax decides that the best course of action is an impromptu motivational speech. Listen up, everyone. We can't let a little delay in lentils ruin our day. The men exchange glances, half amused and half prepared for the inevitable failure of this cheer. His hope hangs in the air like a piñata, vibrantly colored yet destined for a swift, chaotic demise. Now, as the sun rises higher, so does the temperature, and you notice an odd-looking caravan making its way toward the camp, moving slower than a snail, wearing a full suit of armor. Pertinax's eyes widen. Could it be? He whispers, his hope blooming like spring flowers in the sterile landscape. But lo and behold, it's not supplies at all. It's a gaggle of local traders, with a reputation for bartering, like they're casting spells on the very idea of fair exchange. Soon the scene escalates into a dull flurry of flapping trade discussions, trading lentils for flaming hot sauce, and stories about how they once fought a lion with nothing but a spoon. But those lions have since retired, Pertinax exclaims with desperate hope. completely unaware that he's painting an absurd picture for hungry soldiers. But what's this? A soldier victoriously strides up to the makeshift command post, an armload of bread from the local baker in his grasp. Would anyone care for some excellent carbs, he proclaims, like a modern-day knight riding into battle. Rejoicing fills the air as soldiers dive for the bread like it's a golden treasure chest. As night falls, you find Pertinax sharing tales of the day's misadventures, laughter filling the air like fragrant incense. Sure, he may have felt like a circus ringmaster overseeing a flock of lost ducks at times, but he managed to keep the spirit alive. And through the sweaty chaos of war and logistics, camaraderie prevails, albeit garnished with a smidgen of ridiculousness, a sprinkle of roasted goat tails, and some truly questionable dietary decisions. So as you slip deeper into sleep tonight, remember that even in the arid chaos of history, there's a comedy in every cold lentil and questionable trade negotiation, where the real victories are sometimes the friendships found and the stories shared. Sleep well, dear friends, and may your dreams be filled with the peculiarities of Pertinax and his adventurous band of ancient misfits. Asterisk, asterisk, Chapter 8. Pertinax and the Roman Rooftop Rumble, asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back to another cozy corner of the history universe, where we delve into tales so unexpectedly entertaining they could give your favorite sitcom a run for its money. Tonight, we find ourselves facing some history that's more chaotic than a toddler's birthday party featuring a bouncy castle next to a petting zoo. That's right, we're headed to Roman Britain in 193 AD, a time when political intrigue was hotter than your morning coffee, and battles were fought just as passionately as anyone who has ever lost an argument about the best pizza toppings. Before we dive headfirst into this delightful mess of history, don't forget to sprinkle some support by liking, subscribing, and dropping a comment about your favorite historical faux pas, or even your most recent battle with your Wi-Fi. Because, ancient soldiers had it easy. They never had to deal with buffering during the latest season of their favorite show. Now, if you're all comfy and the lights are dimmed just right, maybe grab a blanket that's cozier than a hug from a well-fed bear. Let's consider a few things. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where chaos is swirling around you like confetti in a windstorm? Like that moment when you're trying to assemble IKEA furniture and suddenly discover there are 5 pieces left over that you're certain weren't in the box? Or perhaps when you're hosting a dinner party and halfway through cooking, you realize the only thing left in your fridge is a half-eaten pickle jar and 2 questionable eggs? Congratulations, you've just woken up in 193 AD, right alongside our pal Pertinax. The year is officially celebrated as the Year of the 5 Emperors. Yes, sirree, it's about as stable as a Jenga tower up against a marching band. The only thing standing taller than the political backstabbing is the actual wall itself, Hadrian's Wall. That is where you can hear the clanging of swords and the smell of something that decidedly smells less savory than wine. As you immerse yourself in this strange new world, the scene around you unfolds like a dramatic play gone hilariously awry. The sun is beating down around the battlegrounds, and there's Centurion Pertinax, valiantly attempting to keep order amidst the chaos, like someone trying to herd a group of intoxicated cats in a laser pointer chase. His bronze helmet gleams like a disco ball at a party you didn't want to attend, the sunlight glinting off it as he dodges a flying spear that definitely wasn't on the Welcome to the Battlefield brochure. Now picture this. You're in an ancient Roman military camp. The air is heavy with the smell of sweat, assorted spices, and a faint hint of roasted meat that may or may not have been Larry the Magnificent Goat. You can hear the distant clamor of soldiers shouting orders. Some sound like motivational coaches, while others seem more like confused bystanders at a bad carnival game. Pertinax stands firm, his posture reminding you of that friend who insists on conquering every board game, but inevitably ends up flipping the table out of rage, though usually table flipping leads to less swordplay. He's rallying the troops with a speech about fighting for Rome, glory, and yes, you guessed it, lentils. Behold, he declares dramatically, "Let us fight for honor," and a rather delectable stew that better not have gone cold. The soldiers, slightly bemused but also somewhat energizingly motivated, can't help but chuckle. The idea of fighting for a piping bowl of lentil stew while dodging chaos is oddly relatable. It's kind of like trying to grab the last slice of pizza at a party while simultaneously avoiding eye contact with that one person who always slides up next to you with cringe-worthy small talk. But the tension rises like a poorly baked souffle when word reaches Pertinax that rebels are on the move. Cue the ominous music, although it's probably just someone in the back playing an ancient lyre way off key. The atmosphere hangs heavy, and you can practically taste the anxiety in the air like an overly salty soup you just can't put down. In the midst of this chaos, as swords clash and armor rattles, Pertinax suddenly has a flash of brilliance, a plan so complex that even a modern-day committee meeting might raise an eyebrow or two. He gathers his men and announces, "Let's distract them with pointers on ancient Roman feng shui. They'll never see us coming." His troops exchange incredulous glances that translate broadly to, "Is he serious right now?" Before you know it, Pertinax's soldiers have formed a quirky welcome committee, placing their shields strategically to create a pathway for their feng shui demonstration. Battle tactics are whipped out like desperate parents at a "my kid can win a trophy" contest, but all the enemy sees is this bizarre display of Roman soldiers tossing their shields in a circular pattern. Pertinax is smiling like he just found an extra slice of cake hidden behind the vegetables. Amidst the confounding antics, you can't help but be amused as this tumultuous day unfolds. Distraction tactics are almost like trying to convince your cat to wear a tiny cowboy hat. It just raises a lot of eyebrows and some bemused laughter. In the end, the battle arrives as chaotic and unpredictable as a dog wading into a kiddie pool filled with spaghetti. As the day closes and the sun begins to dip behind the hills, you find Pertinax enjoying the unexpected camaraderie and laughter that somehow emerge from the chaos of battle. He realizes it's less about swords and more about the bonds forged in the heat of absurdity. And as you find peace amidst the hilarity of history, remember that through every clanging sword and chaotic caper, camaraderie thrives. Sleep well and let your dreams fill with tales of Pertinax and his wildly fascinating adventures in the unpredictable world of ancient Rome. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 9. The Wax Seal of Destiny. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back to our cozy yet mildly chaotic corner of history, where the tales might be more absurd than the contents of your last takeout box. Tonight, we're diving into a time period that's as tangled as your headphones after a long day in your bag. 193 AD. Hold on to your togas because we're about to hop on the back of a time machine fueled by wax seals, ancient shenanigans, and a sprinkle of questionable decision-making. Before we plunge into this delightful whirlpool of history where the politics are stickier than honey, trapped in a bead of sweat during the Roman summer, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoy this sort of thing. Only if you want to, though. No pressure. It's not like we're handing out gold coins for compliments. Yet. Now, get comfy, snag a robe that feels softer than a freshly opened bag of marshmallows, and dim those lights, like you're setting the mood for an epic movie. Marathon. Are you all settled? Good. Let's ruminate over a few questions before we boot up our inner time travelers. Have you ever woken up and felt like the universe handed you a task only to leave you utterly bewildered? Like being asked to assemble a piece of furniture without instructions? Asterisk, asterisk. And speaking of bewilderment, how would you feel if you were suddenly charged with managing a battalion of grumpy soldiers somewhere less than thrilled about the possibility of battle, and yet all too willing to argue about which side had the better snacks? Maybe your best bet for staying sane would be finding the last pack of gummy bears in your pantry. Congratulations. You've just woken up in 193 AD where every day feels like a new, exciting episode of Who Will Kill the Emperor Today. Today, the place smells like a mix of olive oil, sweat, and the lingering regret of last night's feast. Though not much of that is left to be regretted. Why? Because right now, we're in a Roman military camp, surrounded by clangs and clanking of armor, and Pertinax, our surprising hero, has just received a promotion via a wax-sealed document. Intrigued? You should be. The atmosphere crackles with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Soldiers rush around like lost puppies, while you stand there, bathed in the golden glow of the sun, questioning why in the world you wore your best sandals to what is essentially a battlefield. As Pertinax, adorned in his golden laurels, requests silence with the poise of a toddler attempting to grab the attention of their parents during a family gathering. You can't help but think how chaotic this all is. The air is thick with camaraderie, spicy, like that jerk chicken at your cousin's wedding, and yet oddly reminiscent of your last attempt at cooking something significant. Imagine this scene. Pertinax holds the military document like it's a prized catch from a fishing trip, but instead of a fish, it's an official decree, promoting him higher up in command. It's basically the ancient equivalent of winning a coupon for free pizza, but with more swords and fewer cheesy toppings. As the wax seal glistens in the sunlight, you can almost hear the excited whispers of soldiers comparing notes on whose aunt makes the best lentil stew, a key point of contention among this group. Meanwhile, Pertinax's excitement is palpable. He practically vibrates with enthusiasm that feels like a double shot of espresso if espresso were made of determination and just a hint of anxiety. As you glance over at some soldiers practicing maneuvers that resemble a particularly enthusiastic line dance, the absurdity of it all hits you. Who thought sword fighting would be a great team-building exercise? It's like everyone decided that a game of charades could benefit from sharp objects and heavy armor. Safety precautions be darned. Now, let's imagine the conversations happening here. Hey, did you see Pertinax get promoted? Yeah, I heard his secret was just doing his job while not engaging in a gladiatorial thumb war. While these soldiers huddle together, nervously discussing recruitment strategies, you notice Pertinax marching right up to them with the confidence only a man with a wax seal can muster. What's the plan? He bellows, in a voice that's probably meant to carry across a crowd but sounds more like an enthusiastic dog barking after a squirrel. The troops gather round excitedly, pausing only to argue about whether or not it's valid strategy to use ancient Roman feng shui to distract the enemy. You can only chuckle at this nonsense. Why tackle an army when you can suggest they rearrange their tents for better energy? It's like they're at a wannabe military retreat mixed with a holistic wellness workshop. As the day unfolds and the chaos grows, you can't help but wonder about Pertinax's plans. What he doesn't realize is that he's not just managing an army, he's trying to herd cats on a roller coaster. In the grand scheme of Roman politics, it's not just about rising through the ranks. It's about surviving the ridiculousness and absurdity that comes with the title. Through all the ruckus, laughter, and silliness, one can find solace in the idea that even amid swords and battle, the genuine bonds formed by ridiculous plans and shared camaraderie shine through without fail. As night closes in and the rumbles fade into a calm stillness, let yourself snuggle deeper into the familiarity of this historical chaos, gently lulling you into the world of dreams where Pertinax actually manages to pull off an inappropriate dance-off in the name of glory. Sleep deeply, and may your dreams be filled with wax seals and mildly absurd occurrences just like this. Asterisk, asterisk, Chapter 10. The Marble Maze of Politics. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back to our delightfully chaotic exploration of history's more peculiar incidents, where even the stories of emperors can feel like your neighbor's backyard barbecue, overcooked and slightly contentious. Tonight, we'll be swirling through the marble halls of ancient Rome in 193 AD, a year that made family reunions feel like day trips to the DMV. Picture it, a Senate house alive with passionate debates and more back and forth than a game of ping pong with someone who's just learned the rules. But before we dive into the chaotic miasma of senators in high fashion clad in togas wider than your uncle's favorite Sunday shirt, let me ask, have you ever found yourself in a meeting so pointless that staring at the ceiling felt like a great escape plan? Or maybe you've helplessly watched as discussions escalated over whether pineapple belongs on pizza, or in this case, who should be the next Roman emperor. If only they understood that reaching consensus is like herding cats wearing togas, right? And speaking of togas, how do you think they managed that constant battle against woolly wardrobe malfunctions in the heat of heated debates? It's as if they didn't invent adjustable waistbands yet. Let that sink in while you recline in your sweatpants instead. Alright, settle in, wrap a cozy blanket around yourself, and dim those lights like you're preparing for a soothing sheep counting session. Congratulations. You've just woken up in 193 AD, where political stability is akin to balancing a plate of spaghetti on your head while tap dancing hardly a recipe for success. Let's step through those hefty marble doors into the Senate chamber. Picture a grand hall column soaring to the heavens and marble floors so shiny you could see your reflections. Assuming that you had the time of day to check your appearance in this historic whirlwind of diplomacy and awkward pauses, the air is filled with the blend of sweat, heated arguments, and the faint scent of roasted olives. You might catch the occasional waft of someone's rather questionable lunch from the day before. Your heart races as Pertinax, decked out in consul's garb, strides to the center. He's got a twinkle of uncertainty in his eye, as if he's just been told he's hosting a dinner party without any food. With a demeanor more serious than a cat caught in a bear trap, he raises his arms to silence the senators. "Esteemed colleagues," he starts, the kind of opening that could put even sleeping kittens on high alert. But alas, as he speaks, the cacophony of senators squabbling about the best ways to squander the empire is deafening. It's a Roman version of who can shout the loudest, and you half expect someone to pull out a bell, like the ones used in a game show, to signal the end of their nonsensical musings. Transitioning through the sea of white togas, you can hear the grumbling and irresistible humor that permeates this majestic marble chamber. What do you think of Pertinax as the emperor? Someone deadpans. I say he gets a gold star for showing up on time. It's like a gathering of over-caffeinated Greek philosophers after a particularly fiery feta debate. As they argue, you notice looming behind them are the statues of past emperors, judging silently yet intensely as if they're clenching their marble fists, waiting for someone to finally bring out the lunch they were all promised. Yet in the thick of all the imperial posturing, you're struck by the absurdity of it. Senators working harder on their hand gestures than on actionable strategies. It's as if they collectively decided that point-making was more about performance art than governance. Java, a rather well-spoken senator, stands up dramatically. If we disagree upon the right emperor, we shall face more chaos than a cat at a dog convention. You bite your tongue to avoid laughing. Only in Rome could destiny be debated with such flair and creatively disastrous analogies. In that moment, Pertinax battles through the madness of swirling togas and roaring senators. He stands firm. You can almost hear a collective heartbeat of the election process, like a slow drum roll leading to the grand announcement of whoever wins the title of who will simultaneously break the empire and fix it. And then it happens. As Pertinax addresses them once more, you lean in, awaiting profound wisdom, or at least something resembling an epiphany, but instead, suddenly a pigeon flies in through an open window. If this bird could talk, it would probably critique their toga styles like a very opinionated fashionista, flapping wildly. It serves as the biggest distraction since someone mentioned a salad in a room full of meat lovers. Some senators point, others duck, and you swear you can hear a few of them debating how to eat a pigeon. Welcome to Rome's most famous Senate chamber. Now, while they engage in fluttering fervor, your attention turns back to Pertinax, whose face is a mixture of exasperation and determination, as if he's just lost at a game of rock, paper, scissors to a toddler. In such moments of utter chaos, you find the soul of Roman politics. Absurdity wrapped in seriousness, tied in glorious inefficiency. As you prepare to drift into your dreams, remember that even amidst the marble halls of power, sometimes the biggest challenges are the feathers flying overhead. Sleep tight, and may your dreams be filled with toga-clad senators arguing with birds about the state of the empire. Now, wouldn't that make for some lively dinner conversation? Asterisk, asterisk, Chapter 11. The Aqueduct of Absurdities. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back to yet another delightful dive into the comically chaotic cacophony of history, where the past can feel as relatable as a kid trying to explain TikTok to their parents. Tonight, we're heading straight for the sun-baked streets of Roman Africa province in 193 AD. A year so tumultuous, it makes family road trips look like a soothing spa retreat. Imagine this. Vibrant streets, where the air thick with the scent of spiced fish mingles with the oddly pleasant aroma of freshly baked bread. A place where the only thing louder than a vendor hawking his wares is the ever-enthusiastic crowd bickering over whether their figs are a bit too ripe. And let me tell you, that debate has about as much resolution as whether cats or dogs make better companions. Spoiler alert. It depends on who you ask. But wait, have you ever found yourself wandering through a construction site, chuckling at the impressive lack of helmets, and wondering how anyone expected to live through the day without a dose of bureaucracy? Or maybe you've tried to navigate through the traffic of a bustling market, contemplating how many ancient Roman sandals you could buy if you channeled your inner finance guru. We're calling in your historical budgeting skills tonight. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the glorious chaos of Roman Africa, where Pertinax, that ambitious fellow who rose from the son of a slave to the position of proconsul, is overseeing the construction of a flashy new aqueduct. You might think, what a noble endeavor. But do keep your wits about you. Aqueducts don't just spring up like mushrooms after a rain. They require labor, planning, and a whole lot of shouting. As you step into this sun-soaked world, the heat envelopes you like a sweaty hug from an uncle you barely know. Picture Pertinax standing there, surveying the raucous symphony of construction with all the seriousness of a man who just realized he's run out of coffee before a Monday morning meeting. You hear the rhythmic clinking of chisels against stone and the gruff chatter of workers shouting at each other, probably arguing over whose turn it is to fetch the water. One man raises his arms dramatically. I swear, if Flavius takes my shovel one more time, I'll make him build with wet spaghetti. A valid concern, honestly. It's just construction mishaps waiting to happen. It's not long before you're mentally transported into a scene reminiscent of a chaotic episode of a home renovation show minus the safety gear and the charming host to guide you through it all. Instead, you have laborers falling over each other like a pack of kittens chasing a wayward ball of yarn. There's always one who's more interested in crafting practical jokes than anything else. I say we build the aqueduct straight up to the Emperor's palace. Let him know we're serious about hydration. Ah, hydration. A theme, as important as any in the dusty provinces. You chuckle as you spot Pertinax with a scowl plastered across his face, as if he just bit into an unripe pomegranate. After all, he's dealing with more delays than a poorly planned family reunion, where someone inevitably forgets the mashed potatoes, and let's be real, someone's gonna end up behind the grill flipping meat like it's an Olympic sport. As you wander closer, the distant sound of cheerful laughter cuts through the air, possibly from a group of children playing a game of tag among the crumbling ruins. It's reminiscent of the chaos within your own home when the Wi-Fi goes down. Children transform from little angels into miniature tornadoes, and suddenly everyone is in a race against time, arguing over whose turn it is to find the remote control. Here, though, the stakes are much higher, as these little rascals are navigating potential Roman ruins while dodging flying stones. Pertinax finally manages to gather the workers deciding discretion is the better part of valor when he stands atop a rickety wooden platform that looks like it's held together by sheer willpower and a prayer. "Listen up," he shouts, his voice cracking like an oak branch in a storm. "We need to get this aqueduct finished before they decide to make September a holiday dedicated to the Emperor's favorite cheese." At first, it sounds absurd, like an ambitious marketing ploy to raise awareness about soggy bread, but the urgency of it all sinks in. Imagine the Emperor declaring a cheese festival, which, honestly, might just ignite more chaos than a Roman Senate meeting at a wine tasting. Pertinax continues, "Your families depend on this water. The last thing we need is to turn the fountains into decorative piles of dust instead of refreshing oases." With each word, you can almost see the light bulb flicker on above each worker's head as they suddenly realize that maybe, just maybe, the aqueduct could save their bacon or at least help keep their livestock well hydrated. As you soak in every chaotic minute, you savor the absurdity of it all, realizing that even the most glamorous projects in history often started as clumsy adventures peppered with misunderstandings and a good dose of hilarity. And just like that, you find yourself slipping into a tranquil flow of sleep, dreaming of aqueducts constructed with nothing but good intentions and the occasional foot-and-mouth moment. May your dreams be as amusing as life on the bustling streets of Roman Africa. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 12. Commodus and the Colosseum Circus. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, ready to dive into a spectacle so absurd it makes your last family gathering feel like a high-class soiree? Tonight, we're headed to the year 193 AD, a time when the Roman Empire was as stable as a one-legged table trying to serve a three-course meal at a wobbly banquet. Picture it. Drama, chaos, and a lion-skin-clad emperor with a wild-eyed expression that could make even the bravest gladiator reconsider their career choices. Now, I want you to imagine what your life might be like if suddenly someone declared that wearing animal skins and swinging around swords was the new corporate dress code. Would you strut into the office wearing a cheetah-printed onesie while contemplating whether you should bring a spear for that afternoon meeting about strategy? Just think about it. How spicy would those PowerPoint presentations get? But before we slip into the pandemonium of Roman entertainment, let's take a moment to consider the small pleasures of life in 193 AD. What's it like to feast on delicacies like roasted peacock while trying to avoid getting trampled by a galloping chariot? Seriously, is it hard to maintain a sophisticated dining demeanor when you're dodging hooves like they're an unexpected inbox email? Congratulations, you've just woken up in the bustling chaos of ancient Rome, where the streets are filled with the raucous laughter of nobles, the shouts of street vendors, and an emperor who might just be one misplaced compliment away from declaring a war against the concept of rational thinking. Now let's talk about Emperor Commodus, shall we? Imagine him standing there in the Colosseum, decked out in a lion's pelt, looking like a mix between a confused circus performer and an overzealous cosplayer who took their role way too seriously. With an expression that says, I might be plotting world domination, but first how do I look? He embodies the essence of tyrannical flair with a touch of theatricality. The people view him in awe and horror, much like watching a three-legged cat try to conquer the Everest of your backyard fence. Commodus struts across the sandy arena, his version of a runway, playing pretend Hercules while wielding a club that would make even the most seasoned caveman raise an eyebrow. Each exaggerated motion is punctuated by dramatic flair, turning even the most mundane sword fights into melodramatic soliloquies. You'd think he was auditioning for a leading role in a soap opera, wouldn't you? As he prepares to take on wild animals in the arena, you can almost hear the collective thoughts of the crowd. Is this really happening? Did we just order a happy snacks platter? Or a gladiatorial showdown? The anticipation builds, and each onlooker grips their togas tightly, as if about to hurl their popcorn onto the sacred sands of battle. Will it be lions, bears, or a confused tortoise tonight? They whisper, eyes wide like children waiting for their favorite candy bar to be unveiled. And oh, the scent wafting through the air, the aroma of sweat, roasted meats, and just a hint of something deeply strange, as if a chef accidentally mixed up their spice cabinet with a potion shop. The vibrant colors of tunics and laurel wreaths animate the stands, giving a splash of drama to the otherwise sandy surroundings, making you feel as if you're part of a living mural, where emotions and absurdity collide. With Commodus embracing his wild side, gladiators enter the arena with more confidence than a toddler at their first birthday party, almost as if they're planning to defeat the emperor by simply outstaring him. So, was their strategy? Holding a sign that says, "We didn't rehearse this. We might just become the new battle cry." As the first beast enters the arena, Commodus channels all his rage into a theatrical performance that even Shakespeare would envy. It's like he's on a quest for social media, likes a thumbs up for each kill, each roar, and each dramatic fall. "Look at me," he seems to shout. "I'm redefining what working from home looks like." The audience erupts, part horrified, part captivated, as he swings his club with all the finesse of a sleep-deprived dad trying to put together IKEA furniture at 3 a.m. Now, let's talk about the gladiators waiting in the wings, almost resembling those during office hours Zoom calls you endure, where you start questioning everyone's choice of background. Is Phineas really in a library, or is he just pretending because he forgot his Wi-Fi password? In contrast, these gladiators are left to plot their fate, sort of like huddling together in the break room discussing who will end up with the last donut, all while trying to avoid eye contact with the snack stealer in the corner. But the fun doesn't stop there, as Commodus, high on the crowd's adoration, struts back to his throne, puffing up like a proud rooster. With a grand flourish, he declares, "Let's do this again. Who's in favor of next week's competition of the comically confused?" A chorus of cheers erupts, with people nodding enthusiastically as if they were at some revolutionary concert. Because let's be real, nothing ever truly beats the dramatics of the ancient arena. As you immerse in this chaotic reality, straddling the line between admiration and disbelief, you can't help but feel a deep connection to the absurdity of it all. The wildness of Roman life rolls over you like a tide, reminding you that even kings have their quirks, and sometimes all you can do is laugh at the tusks of history, a roar so perfect it puts even the loudest lion to shame. So close your eyes and let the echoes of Commodus's theatrical antics lull you into a state of peaceful rest, your dreams tinted with a splash of absurdity as you perhaps even contemplate what will come next, the year of the 5 Emperors, where history's comedic chaos takes you on an unexpected journey. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 13. The Conspirators' Confabulation. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, ready to cozy up into something darker than that one family secret you've been avoiding? Tonight, we're immersing ourselves in a clandestine meeting that might just make your last work conference call look like a friendly game of charades. Picture this. Dimly lit chambers in 193 AD Rome, where the stakes are higher than your morning caffeine fix, and even more confounding than trying to decipher your last text from your high school friend after several glasses of wine. Before we glide into our secretive scene, let's take a second to ponder. How do you think it feels to strategize a royal assassination while simultaneously wondering if you remembered to put the milk back in the fridge? And does anyone ever actually get the heirloom tomatoes at the market, or is that just a cruel myth? Imagine the level of distraction you'd have trying to navigate a silent agreement while daydreaming about the spicy meatball sub waiting in your lunchbox. Serious multitasking or imminent disaster? Congratulations. You've just woken up in the inner sanctum of the Praetorian Guard, where power plays are as common as awkward eye contact during a Zoom meeting. As you settle in, the air is thick with tension and the smell of something akin to burnt toast mixed with anise, second-rate wine, and anxiety. Perhaps? Creating an atmosphere that's more conducive to scandal than serenity. As the flickering oil lamps cast dramatic shadows across the room, you can see a diverse gathering of conspirators, each of them sporting expressions that could easily be misconstrued as either intrigue or indigestion. Among them is Laetus, the Praetorian prefect, who appears to be rehearsing for a role in a particularly dramatic tragedy. His furrowed brow and clenched fists suggest he's got more ideas brewing than a coffee shop in a hipster neighborhood. Tonight, Laetus asserts, we look into the mad eyes of Commodus, the emperor who considers himself a reincarnation of Hercules. And honestly, can you blame him? I mean, have you seen that hairstyle? So very wrestler meets confused lion tamer. The laughter around the room isn't just nervous. It's a bonding moment, a shared understanding that this chaos isn't just personal, it's downright professional. The conspirators nod knowingly, and you can almost feel the collective dread settling in, like an uncomfortable pair of shoes 3 sizes too small. They mumble about how each day with Commodus is like playing a game where the rules change with every turn. Each new decree feels like a surprise twist on a well-loved sitcom. Will he declare war on the Senate? Will he demand that all senators wear togas made of goat fur? Stay tuned! More whispers fill the air as they discuss the finer points of their plan. Stealth is key, one conspirator suggests, waving his hands wildly like he's auditioning for a silent film. Will, we have to be as subtle as a cat in a bathtub. You can't help but imagine their subtlety has the same effect as a fruitcake at Christmas, a mix of confusion, discomfort, and too many questions about its existence. Right, but what if we bungle it up? Another member interjects, nervously twiddling his thumbs. I mean, how awkward would that be? Excuse me, Emperor Commodus, we were just kidding. Please don't strangle us with your pelt! The image makes everyone chuckle, a bit of levity against the backdrop of treachery. They begin to banter wildly about how best to execute their plan. Stabbing seems old-fashioned. Poisoning? Well, that's a classic, albeit a bit cliché. Someone raises their hand as if calling during a classroom lecture. What about just giving him a really boring book? You know, something shockingly dry and weighty like The History of Brick Construction in Rome that might do the trick. Laughter rolls through the chamber, proving that a good sense of humor prevails, even in tumultuous times. But as the hilarity subsides, they return to staring somberly at Laetus, who appears to be considering a tangent about gladiatorial bears. Let's focus, people. What we need is a plan that's effective and, let's be honest, fabulous. For those who know how to dodge spears, it's all about finesse. The plotting becomes more focused as they discuss details about timing, locations, and the unfortunate disposition of their future victim. But as serious as it all sounds, you can't shake the levity in the air, as if they are all just a bunch of well-meaning clowns trying to juggle knives, and maybe some kittens, at a circus gone wildly wrong. Eventually, they settle on a beautifully morbid plan involving an alibi that's more convoluted than your favorite series finale. A staged wrestling match where Commodus will face a rogue gladiator. All we need is the right distraction. Don't worry, my mothers. Soup recipe includes enough yelling to cover any noise. With a final conspiratorial nod, they clarify the plan, and the tension begins to lift like mist from the Tiber. As they disperse, you find your mind racing with the absurdity of it all. In this chaotic world of mischief and mayhem, you can't help but marvel. Perhaps ambition and lunacy have never been so closely related like a cat wearing sunglasses. They both evoke an emotion somewhere between delight and despair. So, as the conspirators slip into the shadows, take a moment to appreciate this delightful chaos. For it is not just history, it's a reminder that sometimes the most entertaining solutions are found in the most absurd schemes. And hey, who doesn't love a good plot twist? Asterix, Asterix. Chapter 14. The Fateful Pour. Asterix, Asterix. Hey guys, tonight we dive into something darker than your last attempt at an online cooking class gone awry. We're about to witness a moment so dramatic it puts your last family gathering to shame. the infamous poisoning of Commodus. Yes, the emperor who fancied himself a gladiator. Seriously, he had a flair for the dramatic that would make even Shakespeare raise an eyebrow. As we glide into this tale, let's ponder for a moment. How does one even begin to pour poison into a goblet while worrying about how your life choices led you here? Was their poison of choice sourced from Amazon's Assassination Essentials section? And what does one wear to a royal poisoning? Is it like formal but make it nefarious? Think about that. If you had to dress for a life-altering crime, would you opt for an understated cloak or a vibrant toga that screams, "I'm definitely not up to any mischief"? Maybe the real question is, do they have snack? Breaks in the middle of conspiring to overthrow an emperor? Congratulations, you've just woken up in the luxurious, if disheveled, dining room of the Roman palace in 193 AD, an era known less for its fine dining and more for its treachery than the last family reunion your cousin Paul threw when he couldn't find the wine glasses. The room around you is gleaming with gold goblets and shiny platters. Yet there's an air of chaos, like someone tossed a toga party and forgot about the sober part of the festivities. In this extravagant setting, you can nearly taste the tension, hovering thicker than that layer of dust hiding behind your couch. The air is punctuated with a faint scent of spiced wine, mixed with the desperate musk of betrayal, quite the unappetizing fragrance, really. You can hear muted conversations just beyond the walls, where slaves scurry about, carrying dishes that would probably make your average modern dinner look like a sad sandwich. As you settle in, your attention drifts to the central figure of our story, a slave with a steady hand, standing with purpose at the dining table. He expertly pours a dark, viscous liquid from a tiny bottle, something that could just as easily be a potion or the world's fanciest espresso. The goblet glitters under flickering candlelight, almost too beautiful for its terrible fate. You can feel a sense of anticipation in your bones, like waiting for that final season of your favorite show to drop after a year of speculation. Let's talk about the dynamics of dinner parties in ancient Rome, shall we? It's usually the creme de la creme of social gatherings, layers of deceit, and, apparently, layers of exquisite food. Ever tried to host a dinner with relatives while secretly plotting to eliminate the guest of honor? You'd think it'd be easier to avoid the whole fiasco with just a simple, "let's skip dessert." But here, amid marble columns and painted ceilings, the stakes are as high as your cholesterol levels after last Thanksgiving. The slave, let's call him Lucius for the sake of storytelling, pauses for a brief moment, contemplating his next move. What sort of inner dialogue do you think he's having? Should I wipe the rim of the goblet? Perhaps he prefers a heavy pour? Oh, what if this is the vintage he absolutely detests? You can almost hear him mentally flipping through the etiquette handbook he surely never received. How to successfully poison a mad emperor without getting caught. It's like planning a surprise party, but instead of balloons, you're dealing with arsenic. And then it happens. Just as Lucius is about to make the ultimate pour, a crash resonates from the corner of the room. A large vase, probably a relic from the days when decorating involved a gallon of gold paint, tips over, sending shards flying like your hopes every time you try to assemble IKEA furniture without the instructions. You almost scream, but it's too late. The goblet is precariously poised, and all eyes are on Lucius, who suddenly looks like a deer caught in headlights if that deer were about to deliver a death sentence. The din of the dining room transforms into something akin to the sound of a kettle boiling. Nervous laughter ripples through the gathering, a group of individuals who'd probably sooner stab each other with forks than share a genuine moment. As whispers of, "Did you see that? And is it too late to change my order?" ripple through the group, Lucius knows this is his moment, an opportunity polished with the brilliance of a freshly cleaned discus. And just like that, he pours. The dark liquid swirls hypnotically inside the goblet, a venomous ballet completely undetectable to the casual observer. It's like watching a magician pull off an advanced trick, except instead of a rabbit, there's a slow creeping doom to impress everyone. The irony gnaws at your insides. Maybe now that you think about it, a really boring book might have sufficed, but alas, they chose flair over subtlety. As you observe this moral circus unfolding, a thought bubbles up in your mind. How on earth did we go from Roman emperors sipping poisoned wine to you trying to assemble a bookcase without losing your sanity? The grand tapestry of history is woven with threads of chaos, absurdity, and some good old-fashioned familial dysfunction. So here we are dining with conspirators and dreaming of poison. It's glorious. It's dreadful. And somewhere, hidden in all this tumult, is the undeniable truth that life, be it in the time of Commodus or modern-day dinner parties, is often just a fateful pour away from extraordinary disaster. Now, as Lucius steps back, you hold your breath. Will Commodus drink from the goblet? Will he choke on a meatball instead? Stay tuned. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 15. A midnight chase in the heart of Rome. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys. Tonight we find ourselves poised on the cusp of history like a cat on the edge of a suspiciously tall bookshelf. We're venturing into the midnight streets of ancient Rome, where conspirators are about to race around as if they're late for a very important toga-clad luncheon. Filter out the noise of your distressing day and prepare for tales more turbulent than your neighbor's DIY project gone wrong. Before we dive into the escapade, let's take a moment to ponder. Have you ever tried to sneak through a crowded space without someone stepping directly on your foot? Or how about gathering your friends for a late-night adventure without a single one of them forgetting their shoes? What was it like being a conspirator in 193 AD, racing to pull someone into an emperor's seat? Was it like playing musical chairs, but with a fatal twist? Now, imagine this quirky scenario. You've just woken up in the dimly lit streets of Rome on New Year's Day, 193 AD, right in the middle of a week of celebrations following the unceremonious exit of that temperamental gladiator, Commodus. The air is thick with the sweet scent of spice wine from the last remnants of the festivities, mingling with whispers of treachery. Are you feeling cozy yet? Good. The moon hangs low in the starry Roman sky, casting soft glows and eerie shadows that probably make you question whether that statue on the corner is actually a statue or just a very still man. Let's be real, having a statue come to life in 193 AD would definitely not help with the pasta dinner you were planning. And yet, here are our brave conspirators, clutching their scrolls as if they are clutching their last pastries from that overly dramatic bakery across the street. Their hoodie-cloaked figures dart across cobblestone alleys, reflecting a level of stealth that makes you wonder if they've all had secret ninja training, or perhaps just too much wine. Picture it. Men and women scuttling through the streets, tossing furtive glances as they nearly trip over their own togas. Was everyone in ancient Rome secretly trained in gymnastics? Because, when you think about it, trying to be sneaky in a garment designed for swishing and swirling sounds like a recipe for disaster. You can almost hear the fabric whispering, "Look at me. I'm here to make a grand exit. Watch me trip right now." As they hurry, you might wonder, wasn't anyone conscious of making a dramatic entrance? It's like planning a wedding with just a handful of questionable decorations, where the cake is nothing but breadcrumbs and one sad, melted candle. Most importantly, did they have a secret code or perhaps a group chat app that allowed them to plan this coup without it being a messy game of telephone? Hey guys, remember that time we tried to overthrow Commodus? Let's do that again. Amid this amusing chaos, a singular figure rises above the Pertinax, a man whose very name translates roughly to the resolute. Quite ironic, considering he's about to have the worst New Year's Day party ever. He's huddled near the forum, draped in a toga that's decidedly less glamorous than it was earlier. His companions have bolted, having caught wind of their conspiratorial whispers, probably faster than you sprinted to avoid being late to work last Tuesday. But let's take a pause here to soak in the environment. The streets are eerily quiet, save for the muffled sound of sandals against stone. There is a light breeze that carries the scent of freshly baked bread mixed with a hint of mischief, a combination that proves oddly alluring. Flare up someone's nostalgia about their own bread-baking disasters, and you'll quickly discover they'll almost wistfully recall a loaf that was both a weapon and a treat. As Pertinax clutches his robe tighter, you watch him perk up. Maybe he heard laughter echoing from a nearby tavern, or simply figured there'd be a chance he could sneak a bite of bread before the drama started. Isn't it funny how in times of tension, all we really want is a snack? No one can resist the siren call of carbs when chaos reigns supreme. Suddenly, a group of conspirators burst onto the scene, as surprising as realizing that low-cal snacks are still just fruit by the foot. They're hyper, frantically waving their arms like they just spotted an ambitious squirrel. Their leader, a wiry fellow with wild hair and an even wilder expression, approaches Pertinax, eyes wide with excitement. "You're our man. We need you. Commodus has left a vacuum of chaos, and it's time for change. Plus, it's a new year. I hear it's the perfect time to start fresh." What does that even mean? Starting fresh by declaring yourself emperor while others are still clearing the remnants of their hangovers from last night's debauchery? Hey, have fun with that loyal adherence to the Roman calendar. I'm sure Caesar would approve that you're taking breaks in between imitating his success. As you settle into this frantic scene, it strikes you. This moment is just like trying to convince your family that an unexpected game night is a great idea. Everyone initially gasps, then stumbles over one another trying to figure out what snacks to serve. And next thing you know, you're all knee-deep in Monopoly, while someone quietly plots how to snatch all the hotels while you're distracted. Welcome to Rome, a chaotic sense of history in progress. In the end, why not excel in both snacking and ruling a nation, right? The conspirators, after all, are vying for an emperor who may very well be cementing an epic story of rise and fall, a tale layered with drama, betrayal, and the occasional accidental slapstick routine. So let's lean back and watch as our conspirators weave through the tight streets, anxious laughter blending with a backdrop of candlelight, leaving us to wonder, will this chaotic ensemble truly usher in a new era, or simply end up as another epic fail cataloged in the annals of history? And what's a history book without a bit of enthusiasm, drama, and snacks? But now, in this theater of the absurd, we'll let the night unfold, keeping in mind that in Rome, as in life, mischief is just another word for opportunity. Whether they win or trip in the process, history always remembers the tale, preferably one where snacks play a key role, blissfully unaware of how self-destructive the human drama really is. And with the conspirators' plan unfolding, the only question left is, what would you wear to become emperor, and does it come with pockets for those all-important snacks? Asterisk, asterisk, chapter 16, Pertinax and the Crown of Chaos. Asterisk, asterisk, hey guys, tonight we're diving into a historical saga more chaotic than your last family reunion, where everyone forgot the person hosting is vegan. Imagine this. It's 193 AD, a time so reckless it could easily win the most likely to produce a meme award in the Roman timeline. We're talking about a year of the 5 emperors, the only year in history that sounds like the title of a badly planned sitcom. Trust me, you're gonna want to take a deep breath, grab your favorite snack, cause snack time is life, and settle in. Before we plunge into the hijinks of Rome, let's take a moment to reflect on modern life. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you realize your entire plan hinged on one person not forgetting their keys? Or how about that time you thought you'd host a peaceful brunch, only to find out half your guests were on a fad diet that made ordering takeout more complicated than launching a rocket? Picture it, a bunch of conspirators scrambling around, desperately trying to make history before the next gladiator show starts. Yes, tonight we're going to witness a riveting, toga-strewn spectacle with our lead actor, Pertinax servant turned emperor, who's about to discover that life on the throne is arguably messier than his old job. Now, without further ado, let's plunge into the hustle and bustle of Rome, where everyone is wearing something that's clearly not made for mobility, and the stakes are higher than your kid's school project on ancient Rome, which conveniently requires a shoebox. Picture it. You've just stirred awake in a modest home in the heart of the city, and there's Pertinax, blinking like a confused owl. Yes, life in 193 AD is frankly absurd, but also thrilling, like a roller coaster built by the local handyman who's definitely had one too many. The air is thick with tension. Think of it as the aftermath of every office coffee machine. Fight, only with a lot more togas and fewer humans pretending to work. As Pertinax rubs the sleep from his eyes, you can't help but chuckle at how he finds himself in this bizarro predicament. One minute, you're daydreaming of a cozy evening by the fire, and the next, you're standing in a room filled with nervous conspirators, breathing down your neck as if someone just revealed that the Wi-Fi is down. What are these people doing? Why are they looking at him like he's the last fresh pizza at a party? They're also vibrating with barely restraining excitement, like kids on a sugar high who just spotted their favorite ice cream truck. One conspirator, a particularly wild-eyed man whose hair resembles a hedgehog in need of a trim, steps forward. Pertinax, you're our guy. Commodus left a power vacuum so big it could swallow a bull. Of course, one might wonder if they even know what a power vacuum is, or if he just meant the last time someone tried to clean their toga with a broom. What do you mean I'm your guy? You people must have lost your collective marbles. Pertinax stutters, glancing around as if one of them might have an emergency hamster in their toga that could help him out of this situation. The conspirators exchange glances as if to say, come on, you want to keep wearing that toga forever, right? As the gravity of his situation hits him You can see his mind racing faster than a toddler after a long nap. The whispers of Emperor echo in the room, making it sound an awful lot like a political campaign slogan, but with no actual plans for policies or Wi-Fi services. Wouldn't it be funny if the crown had Wi-Fi? Vote Pertinax. Your answer to a better, very unplugged empire. The streets outside buzz with the dulcet tones of Roman life, the clattering of sandals, the occasional shout, and the hints of olive oil wafting lazily through the air. Imagine walking through such a scene, taking it all in, as if it were a really poorly crafted salad, just a mix of everything with questionable dressing. With all eyes on him, Pertinax begins to realize this isn't just a group of friends deciding where to grab dinner. No, these folks are ready to crown him, like he just found the secret stash of chocolate in the pantry. You want me to lead this raucous launch party of chaos? He mutters, his voice laden with disbelief, though a small part of him is visibly intrigued, perhaps even excited. And who could blame him? After all, who wouldn't want to trade their boring life for a chance at being the boss of the entire Roman Empire? But wait, he thinks. Are these guys going to offer me a lifetime supply of wine, or just a new toga for my troubles? What's their return policy on that? Finally, in a burst of determination, Pertinax opens his mouth, but not before attempting to smooth the toga wrappers like you would a wrinkly receipt. Fine. If I do this, do I get free snacks? He peers closely, half expecting a buffet to magically appear. How about a royal approval on some sweet bread rolls? Ah, but there's the rub. In a world where rules are stricter than a nighttime storytelling contest where absolutely no one is allowed to laugh, daring to become emperor is the stuff of legends often ending in tragedy, scandal, and a food fight of epic proportions. But isn't that the best part? It's a testament to human folly, a tale woven from dreams, absurdities, and yes, sometimes even pita bread. So here you are, settling into the scene, observing as Pertinax grapples with the reality of becoming an emperor, all while surrounded by conspirators who may or may not have had just a little too much wine. Where else could you witness such glorious chaos unfolding in history? The hilarity of it all is just starting. And as we drift deeper into Pertinax's story, remember, sometimes life hands you a crown without a single instruction manual, and the snacks, well, they're still unaccounted for. And as you sink deeper into the fabric of this era, believe me when I say, much like scrolling through social media at 2 a.m., this is just the beginning of a very long, if somewhat silly tale. How did Pertinax come to be? What entangled mischief awaits? The toga-clad comedy is only just beginning. Asterisk asterisk. Chapter 17. Dawn at the guard barracks. Toga shenanigans asterisk asterisk. Hey guys. As the sun gently stretches over ancient Rome, all shiny and bright, ready to shine some serious light on the internal chaos of the Praetorian Guard, you might just want to remember a couple of crucial life hacks. First, if you ever find yourself in a situation where the atmosphere is thicker than a porridge made with a heaping helping of disappointment, maybe it's best to keep your head down and avoid potential toga entanglements. Trust me, it's like trying to fit a cat into a cardboard box never ends well. Now, imagine this scene. It's the break of dawn in the Praetorian Guard barracks, and the grumbling voices of soldiers echo through the damp, stony walls, empty promises, and strong opinions swirling through the air like a particularly angry jazz band. You can feel the frustration thick enough to slice with a butter knife. These guys look like they've just seen their last potato. And believe me, not even 100 slices of bread could make a good breakfast feel remotely complete to them right now. A soldier, let's call him Marcus, a name exceedingly common, but I digress, sits sulkily in a corner, fiddling with his helmet as if hoping it might magically transform into a fresh fruit basket. And then there's Lucius, who boasts the kind of beard that could house small woodland creatures. He grunts out a complaint so loud it could rattle the rafters, or at the very least, incite a morning groan from his pals. I signed up for glory and glory only, not to suffer through another round of trench foot. Every soldier nods while they clutch their feet like they've participated in the world's worst pedicure session. Enter Pertinax, your latest emperor, greeting them with a smile that's probably more nervous than a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. He strides in, ready to charm his way into their hearts, or, more accurately, their stomachs, by offering a massive donative. Yes, my friends, when times are tough, money or shiny coins In this case, quickly becomes the Mediterranean balm for broken souls. "Gentlemen," he exclaims, feeling like a waiter about to serve an overpriced meal. "How about a little refresher course on loyalty?" The soldiers perk up. Their eyes gleam like children spotting the last slice of cake at a birthday party. "Imagine, if you will," Pertinax continues, waving his arms dramatically, "a heavy purse of gold coin, a magnificent donative to ensure you remain loyal and, dare I say, harmonious. You'd think he was auditioning for a role in a toga-themed reality show, and honestly, he's not wrong. But hold on to your sandals, because it's not just gold coins on the table. No, this is much more precious than that." The soldiers are grumbling like they've been forced to eat turnips for a week straight when Pertinax, sensing his audience, leans into the deal of a lifetime, giving them the sort of charismatic pitch that would make even a used chariot salesman weep with envy. "With your loyalty, I'll guarantee you endless supplies of wine. And I'm not talking about the watered-down stuff from last week's feast." The room erupts. "Wine?" one soldier exclaims, as if he's just had the universe revealed to him during a poorly timed euphoric epiphany. "Sign me up. Do I get a t-shirt, too?" You can't help but chuckle, because really, isn't that just the essence of soldier life? Working for tangible rewards, and let's be honest, anyone who promises a steady wine supply is automatically better at public relations than some modern-day corporate moguls. Now, let's think about the absurdity here. Ever been in a meeting where the boss is pitching the latest ideas while all you can think about is how badly you need a snack? It's a universal truth. Soldiers, who are now part of this wonderfully chaotic empire, are no different. As Pertinax delivers his rousing speech, you imagine their inner dialogue. Gold, coins, and wine? I'll vote for that guy even if he promises to make pizza the official food of Rome. And can I get that written? So he continues. An emperor in training, weaving through his sales pitch like a parent trying to convince their kid broccoli is a superfood. With your loyalty, I can guarantee the roads will be safe for travel. No more bandits stealing your sandals. I mean, come on. Who wants to stroll around barefoot in Rome? The soldiers murmur in agreement, imagining the pain of stubbed toes and the indignity of running around with no foot friends to speak of. Pertinax's vibrant imagery pulls on their imaginations like an overzealous bard spinning tales at a tavern. Money, wine, and safe sandals. What's not to love, right? And just like that, he's got them. The soldiers chart a new course of loyalty, trading in skepticism for optimism and perhaps a half-baked plan that's more about bread and circuses than sound governance. They collectively nod, setting aside their grievances for a moment and focusing on the promise of a well-fed future. "But tell me," one soldier asks, scratching his chin, "do we get a complimentary toga, or is that an extra charge?" As they chuckle amongst themselves, it's easy to picture their banter fading into sunlight, a blend of sharp humor and camaraderie radiating through the barracks. Early morning has indeed turned into a comedy sketch, one that even the gods themselves will be chuckling at, though perhaps out of earshot. And thus, the dawn has broken over the Praetorian Guard barracks. Pertinax, who not long ago felt like a wayward sheep in a lion's den, has managed to whet their appetite for loyalty, if only a little, because in a world of power struggles, you learn quickly. Sometimes, all it takes is a bit of humor, a good snack, and the promise of wine to redefine what leadership looks like, even when wrapped in a toga. As you lie back, wondering how many sandals you'll need to keep your toes from retreating into the next century, remember historical chaos often thrives on charming absurdities. Let's see what other shenanigans await us in this expansive tainted toga adventure. Asterisk, asterisk, Chapter 18. The pile of excess that laid the empire. Low asterisk, asterisk. Hey, guys, as we drift deeper into the historical antics of yore, prepare yourself for a tale that's about as baffling as trying to figure out why your cat thinks a box is the best sleeping spot ever. Tonight, we find ourselves in 193 AD, a year so chaotic that even the Romans considered calling it a wash. Picture a soap opera more dramatic than a toga-clad fashion show, replete with backstabbing, betrayal, and so many unnecessary love triangles. You'd think they were all auditioning for a role in As the Sand Falls. We've got emperors, generals, and a guy named Pertinax who's about to face more political drama than a soap opera star at a family reunion. So dim the lights, turn on your oscillating fan for that refreshing breeze, and here's the kicker. Like, subscribe, and toss a comment down below if this tickles your fancy. But only if you truly enjoy this, no pressure. We've all been there. Imagine yourself waking up in Rome, not in your cozy bed, but in a marble palace. Which sounds nice until you realize the blankets are made of something akin to overpriced wool, super uncomfortable and even less breathable than an airtight container. Speaking of the ancient elite, have you ever wondered how easy it is to oversee a collection of luxurious goods that could make even the most stingy of pack rats break out in a sweat? Or pondered what it must feel like when someone yells at you while you're sitting on a mountain of excess and gold, demanding you do something about it? Now, congratulations. You've just woken up in 193 AD, and what do you see? An emperor standing before a horde of luxurious goods that make the Vegas Strip look like a thrift shop on clearance day. Yes, you're in the chaos, known as the Year of the Five Emperors, a time of such instability that even the most naive would ask, do I need a ticket to get in on this drama? So picture Pertinax, the new emperor who's just stumbled into a job offer that feels more like a toxic relationship than an administration. Because, believe me, sometimes it's not easy being the guy in charge. Standing there, he surveys the mountains. No, make that hills of excess that the now deposed Emperor Commodus left behind. Gold statues glisten, exotic furs fill every nook. It's like a flea market planted right in the middle of a Persian bazaar, only with more self-satisfaction and less actual shopping happening. Now, let's have a moment of clarity. How did this happen? Commodus was half luxury-loving sloth and half tyrant, which makes for a fascinating yet questionable cocktail. His excesses played a game of who can outshine the last brutally extravagant emperor. Spoiler alert, it wasn't just the coin collectors that were raised from their proverbial beds to demand restitution. A royal yard sale became the only feasible option. As Pertinax evaluated that impressive collection, it was like peering into an especially well-stuffed attic full of forgotten ambitions. Love these golden statues, but I've got a hunch that the average Roman could use a bread roll more than a life-size statue of a dog in a toga, he muttered, likely envisioning the faces of his citizens staring back from a lack of loaf. The room was filled with the kinds of goods that made people fantasize about a life where you could securely hoard beyond belief. And yet, why give them a glittering statue when bread went right through you, and history rarely covered that point in its elaborate scrolls? So he boldly announced, "Let's sell this excess." Imagine the collective gasps echoing from every corner, like someone just pointed out that maybe, just maybe, the banana split wasn't actually a 5-course meal. Pertinax was faced with the daunting task of wading through a lake of hedonism and excess. Let's turn these lavish goods into coin that we can actually use. For food. It's like someone suggesting that instead of keeping the toaster decorated as modern art, we pop in some bread and call it breakfast. Picture this. The soldiers, once bargaining for gold and wine, now throwing side-eye at the mounds of furs and gold, one of them quipping nervously, "You mean to tell me those hideous golden statues don't come with a complimentary chariot ride?" The thought of parading around Roman streets in a golden chariot filled with improvement projects sparked more interest than the entire mountain of riches behind Pertinax's back. If you think modern day was good at offering sappy promotional graphic tees with slogans about loyalty, well, ancient Rome was gearing up for some serious marketing. Pertinax, wise and charismatic, delivered his sales pitch, except in this version. The stakes were much higher than just a mediocre breakfast sandwich. "I'll make this work," he proclaimed. "This pile of stuff can help us bolster our coffers, feed the people, and maybe, just maybe, set the sails toward a brighter future." Surely someone would have dropped the phrase, "Have you ever tried starting a revolution with nothing but a gold-plated fish?" And therein lies the irony. As the world watched him transform luxury into sweet, sweet reality, you can't help but chuckle. In a place where feasting was synonymous with power, here was Pertinax, the emperor facing off with the absurdity of what it meant to lead standing amid heaps of extravagance, while suggesting that it's not about the gold, but rather the bread on the table. What's history, if not a table full of rich irony, ready to serve up a generous slice of humor? Asterisk. Asterisk. Chapter 19, The Paperwork Trail of Pertinax. Asterisk. Asterisk. Hey guys, tonight we dive into a historical conundrum that's more perplexing than choosing a snack at 2 a.m. when all you've got is a bag of croutons and a hint of regret. Welcome to the chaotic whirlwind of 193 AD, a year so dramatic that it made reality TV look like a boring lecture on wheat production. Imagine a world where emperors get replaced faster than your clogged coffee maker goes on a cleaning spree. Grab your most uncomfortable pillow, dim the lights, and if you like what you hear, kindly consider hitting that subscribe button. But only if it doesn't disrupt your slumber. Of course, just like how an unexpected alarm ruins a perfectly good snooze. Now, ever wondered what it's like to sit on a throne made of marble contemplating a mountain of debt while holding a quill? Or maybe you've pondered, what's worse, spilling grape juice at a dinner party or trying to figure out a budget during a leadership crisis? Spoiler alert, being the emperor is a lot like juggling flaming torches while blindfolded, jubilant but perilous. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year of the 5 emperors, where drama oozes from the marble floors and every corner is teeming with intrigue, like a particularly volatile episode of Real Housewives of Ancient Rome. Now, imagine yourself in the bustling heart of Rome, surrounded by the echo of sandals slapping against the cobblestones and the distant aroma of roasted meats tickling your nose. Here you stand, ready to meet Pertinax, the reforming emperor with a heart as big as the Colosseum, only with less bloodshed and more paperwork. Allow yourself to picture Pertinax at his desk, squinting at a scroll, its curls and creases resembling an ancient version of your average morning commute. The desk, a cluttered affair, is lined with various important documents, some of which could have probably been easily replaced by colorful post-it notes. Necessary austerity measures for the empire, he mutters, scratching at an awkwardly positioned stubby beard. It's a pretty big deal for a guy whose transition to emperor was more like being promoted to team leader after everyone else quit. Now let's talk about the setup. In ancient Rome, personal offices weren't exactly ergonomic. Plains of marble were prone to emphasize how stiff your back could get, while feathery clouds of dust danced mischievously in the air, urging you to sneeze right at the moment you were about to make a life-altering decision. You are seated at a desk that was too grand for comfort, surrounded by piles of scrolls and ink pots that seemed to mock you like a cat judging your life choices. Why did you choose that career path? The dust asks, but Pertinax has bigger fish to fry. As he pores over his new austerity measures, you can hear the scratching and scrawling of the quill against the parchment, echoing like a musical score that no one wants to hear during a funeral. Glancing at the extravagance he's supposed to simplify, he thinks, don't these fur cloaks belong to the last guy? Commodus would probably wear a fur coat to the beach. He sighs heavily, every exhale reminiscent of a deflating balloon that just realized it's been filled with nothing but regret. Let's be real, Pertinax mumbles to himself, shaking his head. Selling golden statues for grain is as absurd as suggesting a Sith Lord should take a meditation retreat. Does anyone actually want to invest in pomposity when they can barely afford to buy bread? Here's the irony. The monumental wealth left over by Commodus could have hit different sweet spots if anyone had bothered to focus on something actually useful, like, oh, I don't know, a food supply? Now, pause and imagine the thoughts swirling through his mind. Maybe I could just toss all the gold into the Tiber River and see if it magically transforms into sandwiches. No, Pertinax knows better than that. You can't fish sandwiches. But he hopes some Romans wouldn't mind getting their hands dirty for a chance at stability. After all, what's the point of opulence when you can't afford a decent meal? Maybe calling the auction was a bad idea, akin to hosting a yard sale when your sofa is actively being devoured by mold. Ever wonder whether the senators, among their contentious debates, were bored enough to argue about which wine was truly the drink of the gods? There is probably someone furiously shaking their head, feeling like they're stuck in a medieval version of a sitcom. Pertinax runs his fingers through his hair and faces the challenge head on. Time's a-wasting, he thinks dramatically. Let's put this gold to actual use. Imagine peers rolling their eyes as he declares amidst stifled yawns. Instead of hoarding gold like dragon lords, we should be investing in communal projects. Bread, glorious bread, can only be achieved with honest labor. They're looking at him like he suggested naming the next horseback chariot after the family dog. It's ludicrous, but oddly appealing. Ultimately, as Pertinax signs his modest austerity measures, consider the truth. Leading an empire is much like trying to manage a circus with 1,000 clowns, all while holding a bowl of spaghetti. He can't help but chuckle to himself as he envisions a future where the treasury isn't just a glittering vault of absurdity, but ultimately filled with comfort, sustenance, and a sense of peace. So here we find Pertinax, drawing lines and signing names, deftly diving into the intricacies of governance, more like playing chess with extra pieces, rather than trying to decide if 24 potato samosas can solve world hunger. He is hoping that, in the mess of history, even a tiny semblance of common sense can rise amid the chaos, proving that even emperors can sometimes just want a decent slice of bread. As Pertinax finishes his signing, let's sashay towards the next chapter of absurdity. What could possibly go awry? Before we find out, rest your weary head and recharge for more hilariously historical escapades. Asterisk, asterisk, chapter 20. The Praetorian Shuffle. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, tonight we venture into the hilarious chaos of 193 AD. A time when emperors were chosen with the same care as picking a snack from the back of the pantry. It's uncertain, potentially regrettable, and could easily lead to an upset stomach. Imagine the tension of the Roman Empire wearing army boots, shuffling in line like an overly caffeinated JoJo's Bizarre Adventure opening. But instead of fabulous poses, you just have a whole lot of grumpy faces that scream, "We hate our new boss." Our spotlight is on that ever-fabulous troop known as the Praetorian Guard, equivalent to modern-day bodyguards, but with less charm and a flair for over-the-top melodrama. So let's set the mood, shall we? Dim those lights, turn on that ceiling fan, and snuggle in. Tonight, we aren't just talking history. We're embracing the beautiful absurdity of it all. Ever wonder what it would be like to be surrounded by a group of soldiers so disgruntled they could rival a gathering of hangry cats? Or how it feels when your new leader is enforcing rules stricter than your high school principals in the midst of teenage rebellion? Did you ever think that marching in line could feel a lot like a painfully awkward forced outing to the mall on a Sunday afternoon? Well, grab your imaginary popcorn. It's time to experience the gladiatorial gridlock of workplace politics, Roman style. Congratulations, you've just woken up in 193 AD, the magnificent year of the 5 emperors, where the only thing that moved faster than a pizza delivery was the changing of the throne. You find yourself in the shadow of the Grand Colosseum, with the glaring sun beating down on you like a judgmental relative at Thanksgiving, and here comes the Praetorian Guard, marching out with a rhythm that's more chaotic than a dance-off at a wedding. Now picture this. The guard struts around well, as much as a group can strut, while simultaneously seething with resentment. Their armor glistens under the sun like they just stepped out of a particularly sparkling yet problematic episode of a reality show. But instead of strutting with confidence, they resemble a kindergarten class trying to line up for recess, complete with sulky facial expressions. Who knew that centuries later, prom photos would still have the same awkward energy? The sound of sandal-clad feet click-clacking on the cobblestones fills the air. But there's an added bonus: the grumbling. Oh, the grumbling is an art form. It's like a musical score comprised of disgruntled groans, a symphony of displeasure that could rival any modern-day sitcom laugh track. You can almost hear one soldier muttering, "Why did we even bother polishing our armor? The new emperor will just put us under strict regulations, shiny armor or not." Imagine that. Ego bruised before breakfast, all thanks to one stern-looking guy named Pertinax. As they march, it's all about precision, heads bobbing at awkward angles, arms swinging about as though each of them is forgetting someone's left on the bus. Ever tried to order a burrito while 2 of your friends argue about the best way to cut a cake? That's the kind of energy we're working with here. Let's take a moment to appreciate what it feels like to be in their sandals, that dreadful combination of heat and rigid duty, the kind of experience that makes you think you've somehow stumbled into an intense boot camp for fashionably dressed gladiators. It's like preparing for a marathon wearing shoes 5 sizes too small and hopping around while trying not to step on anyone else's toes. The only thing more discerning than their marching formation is the way they glare at newcomers. You'd think they were guarding the crown jewels when, in reality, they're just trying to navigate who gets to leave the ranks first for a well-deserved spot of wine. Now let's discuss the elephant in the room, the bear in the emperor's toga. Imagine Pertinax, the new guy in charge, trying to impose discipline on a regiment that's already one grumpy day away from rebellion. He might as well have waltzed into a lion's den while wearing his state costume talk about a fast track to a grown-worthy situation. Picture him standing at the front, clipboard in hand, looking about as comfortable as a cat in a bathtub, and fervently attempting to convince the grizzly group that they need to follow rules. Wouldn't you want to be a fly on the wall for that? "Men," he'd announce, attempting to sound authoritative yet exuding the awkwardness of a new waiter fumbling with oversized plates. "We're here to guard the Empire." Cue eye rolls from the guard, so intense that you'd think they'd spotted a beetle on a banquet table instead of a new emperor. "Under my command, we'll save resources. No more spontaneous nighttime parties. Because who wouldn't want to end the manliness of war and mischief under the stars before it even starts? The reality? The only thing less appealing than dietary restrictions for an army is suddenly realizing you're marching under a guy whose political strategy revolves around bizarrely strict discipline. Picture a soldier, rolling his eyes as he thinks, "Great, now we can't even raid the bakeries without a health inspection." As the clanking of armor and the whispers of rebellion rise, know this: history has a way of blending the absurd with the profound, like a particularly strange fruit smoothie, where you can taste both the strawberries and the strange hints of existential dread. So sit back, relax, and keep your helmets on. Because if history teaches us anything, it's that even the Praetorian Guard knows how to put on a show whether they want to or not. And with that thrilling portrait of tension in 193 AD, let's turn the page to see what ever-inventive scheming unfolds next. But for now, close your eyes, relax your weary mind, and revel in the snippets of history we come to cherish, laugh at, and ultimately learn from. Asterisk, asterisk, Chapter 21. The Axe Tie-in Movie. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, tonight we take a wild ride through the chaotic corridors of 193 AD, a year that felt like your favorite soap opera got an unexpected budget boost mixed with a hefty dose of caffeine. Buckle up, because things are about to get wilder than a pet raccoon at a family barbecue. Imagine a scene so dramatically absurd that you'd expect it to end in a commercial for a stress relief retreat, but no. We're in the Roman imperial palace during one of the greatest revolutions since someone decided to make gummy bears an official candy. What could possibly go wrong when the Praetorian Guard launches a mutiny against their new boss, Pertinax? Spoiler, everything. But before we dive into the history-heavy conflict, let me remind you to like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoy this journey into the mildly interesting, although I won't judge if you just want to whisper sweet nothings to your pillow instead. Just don't forget, you're in for a treat tonight. So dim the lights, turn on your ceiling fan, and get comfy, because this is going to be a tale that might lull you to sleep, or at least have you chuckling in your sleep. So, have you ever imagined what it's like to wake up surrounded by disgruntled soldiers wielding axes and swords, searching for their boss? Does it feel like a bizarre team-building exercise gone tragically wrong? Ever thought about what goes through the mind of a very surprised emperor when he realizes he's more popular than a broccoli salad at a barbecue buffet? Or how about the logistics of mutinous soldiers trying to figure out how to bust into someone's office without, and I stress this, completely losing their minds in the process? Congratulations. You've just woken up in the Grand Imperial Palace of Rome in 193 AD, right in the thick of a mutiny that could put a blockbuster action flick to shame. The echoes of clanging armor and the muffled sounds of confusion set the stage. Imagine the smell of tension, sweaty soldiers, and perhaps too many lentils for lunch wafting through the gilded hallways. You're tucked safely in a corner, perhaps peeking through a decorative column as an entire battalion of the Praetorian Guard rushes forward with the fervor of shoppers on Black Friday. There they are, bronze helmets gleaming well, if you ignore the suspiciously sticky bits from the last banquet, and weapons drawn like they're in preparation for the biggest pizza delivery of their lives. Let's talk about the scene axes, glinting in the lavishly lit corridor, like shiny toys in a forgotten playroom, and swords glistening with promises of things that definitely don't include goodwill or office parties. You half expect a dramatic action score to kick in, like your favorite 80 seconds movie that you can't help but love despite its over-the-top antics. Suddenly, you're surrounded by whispers that sound like it's the beginning of a very poorly planned takeover. I swear the last guy was better. And can't someone just challenge him to a bake-off and call it good? The guards bumble about, attempting to pretend they know exactly where Pertinax is hiding, but really it looks like they've just entered the world's worst version of hide-and-seek. The clattering of boots on marble floors reverberates as if something monumental were about to happen, and honestly, it's like mixing a medieval workplace drama with a tense episode of a reality show. As they buckle down and prepare for action, it feels as if the next words uttered could bring the entire empire to its knees. He went that way. Now imagine this poor Pertinax, probably stuck in a cozy office sipping lukewarm wine, obliviously unaware that his employee evaluation was about to be a free-for-all. He may as well have gone to take a restroom break during a riot. How does one prepare to be hunted down by disgruntled bodyguards while feverishly scribbling his next order of the day on a tablet? And what responsibilities come with being the ruler when your guards are more likely to play rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets to storm the office? I'll send him a memo. You can almost hear him saying through gritted teeth, like, can I get a moment here? Just trying to figure out my PowerPoint on why ordering lunch requires a detailed protocol. As they rush, outbursts like, glory to Rome, punctuate the air. But all you can think about is why no one thought to bring a snack to the party. Surely it's hard to stay motivated when sword-wielding might is at stake. Can't a guy just have a peace treaty over pastries instead? Oops. Sorry, says one guard, accidentally knocking over an ornate vase that was probably worth more than your last car. But nobody's really paying attention to that. Oh no! They're fixated on the Emperor, who's now trying to blend in with the decorative foliage, hoping to avoid a very big let's talk about politics moment. The scenario unfolds like a mixed bag of slapstick humor and deadly seriousness. The more chaotic it gets, the more it resembles an epic sitcom with layers of plot twists, except, with actual stakes. Watching these serious soldiers attempt to maintain composure while looking for their boss is like watching a pack of puppies running through a dog park, half of them tumbling into each other and the other half wondering if they can roll in mud. And as the guards create havoc around the palace, you bask in this delightful history-infused mayhem. In the Game of Thrones, or at least the games of hastily attempted uprisings, nothing spells comedy like the simultaneous fear of reigniting might while desperately trying to avoid cracking anyone's heirloom pottery. So here's to the glorious absurdity of the Roman Empire. As the tension builds and the chaos intensifies, just remember, even in a time when the fate of an empire hangs precariously in the balance, there's always room for a good laugh, or at least for snickering from the sidelines, as history unfolds like your favorite sitcom episode. And as the dust settles on this farcical mutiny, let us unwind together, wondering what wild ride awaits us next in our undulating journey through history. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 22. The Final Request. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves in the heated dilemma of a character straight from a Shakespearean tragedy, if Shakespeare had a penchant for spears and awkward silences instead of sonnets. Welcome to 193 AD, a year more chaotic than a cat at a dog park. Picture this. The palace is buzzing with the kind of tension that usually precedes an unexpected family reunion where nobody bothers to bring snacks. Now, imagine you're an emperor, the one and only Pertinax, and you've just found yourself in an oven equipped with more swords than guests. Let's take a moment to appreciate what it must be like to face an unruly bunch of soldiers with a noble heart and a possibly overcooked sense of humor. What do you say to a group of angry armed men? Hey guys, nice axes. Could we talk this out over a nice cup of wine? Spoiler, the answer is typically a resounding no. But before we jump into the melodrama, I'd like to remind you to like, subscribe, and comment only if, of course, you genuinely enjoy this bizarre historical journey. And as we embark upon this adventure, dim the lights, cool the room to your liking, and wrap yourself in the softest blanket you can find because trust me, you'll need it. Ever wondered what goes through an emperor's mind while he considers whether he should negotiate with a bunch of disgruntled bodyguards ready to turn him into a Roman kebab? What would your last moments look like if your audience is more into kill or be killed than diplomacy with a side of hummus? And how's this for a twist? Imagine asking your assassins for a timeout while contemplating your life choices. Is it too late for a career change? Congratulations. You've just woken up in the lavish, yet suddenly very dangerous imperial palace of Rome, huddled in the corner of the atrium, plotting your escape while praying the last meal you had wasn't lentil stew again. The air is thick with tension, unwashed uniforms, and something that smells suspiciously like yesterday's fish lunch. Talk about an indescribable ambience. Let's take a closer look. The atrium is resplendent with marble columns and intricate mosaics that once showcased the grandeur of the empire, now ironically resembling a poorly rendered video game level where things have gone terribly awry. Suddenly, you hear muffled voices clamoring through the corridors, the clattering of boots echoing against the polished marble floors like a very confused percussion ensemble. As you peek around your cover, a rather ornate potted plant, Truth be told, you see a battalion of the Praetorian Guard stumbling about, their bronze helmets glimmering with a delightful mix of shiny fear and absurd determination. They're supposed to be the elite protectors of the Emperor, yet they look about as organized as a band of chickens when a wolf shows up. Where is he? One soldier hisses, shaking his spear as if there's a new emergency protocol for pointing sticks at walls. I thought he was hiding behind the last banquet table. At that moment, you can only think, is this really how you want to meet your end? I mean, how utterly embarrassing to be discovered tucked away behind a decorative column in a palace with more fault lines than a family therapy session. And there he stands, Pertinax perpetually calm, or at least appearing calm, facing the raging soldiers armed with more weapons than practicality. Picture it, old but composed. He raises a hand to halt the chaos, his face wearing the kind of bravado you'd expect from a dad trying to reason with his kids over an ice cream binge gone wrong. Gentlemen, he bellows, hoping to sound regal but looking more like someone in a last-ditch effort to get the Wi-Fi password. Let us talk about this sensibly. I mean, have you even considered the paperwork involved in this kind of decision? The lost vacation time? And is anyone accounting for how many fish might end up on our plates this week? Humorously, amidst their fury, you can almost hear the soldiers whispering. Does he think we're here for a seminar on workplace efficiency? One soldier even mutters, cheeks flushed with the thrill of imminent chaos. We could also just take a vote, right? But alas, it seems the odds are not in his favor. The guards, probably spent from an afternoon of awkward team-building exercises, are not inclined to choose consensus over chaos today. Pertinax continues, I understand we are a bit at odds, but what if I promised an extra month of rations? Murmurs ripple through the ranks, and suddenly you wonder, would free snacks truly be the ultimate negotiating tool in a life or death scenario? The guard is still visibly unimpressed. Rations? He scoffs. Buddy, we can get all the lentils we want. We need a little something more exciting, maybe a race or some gladiators? It's becoming apparent that Pertinax is desperately out of touch with what modern disgruntled employees really want. A free pizza would probably work. But a fatal miscalculation looms as the soldiers chuckle at his naive attempts at negotiation. They're not here for statutes or free snacks. They're here for blood, and all he's offering are crumbs. The overall scene spins hilariously into the absurd, with the tension swirling around like a poorly choreographed dance-off gone wrong. What's the plan here? Order pizza or give them a performance worthy of the best Roman theater? You can imagine the amused expressions on Pertinax's face, the epitome of resignation mixed with the fluster of a man who truly thought he could out-sweet-talk a band of rapscallions. And just when it seems like nothing can salvage this gathering, you see him slotting into a groove, launching into a motivational speech about the glory and benefits of teamwork. The gods, momentarily taken aback, stare blankly as if he just proposed they all do jazzercise together instead. But then, of course, if rock bottom were a beverage, they'd be chugging it right now. Will Pertinax charm his captors with charisma, or will this be an epic flop worthy of Shakespeare's finest tragedies? One thing's for sure, it's anything but boring in the imperial palace. So as the mayhem unfurls, remember, history has its way of blending harrowing moments with delightful absurdity. And tonight is a splendid example of just how out of touch one can be when faced with bloodthirsty soldiers. So grab your evening tea, close your eyes, and let the whimsical tales of 193 AD wash over you like a soothing wave, teasing you towards a world where chaos collides with comedy. Sleep well, dear listener, for tomorrow promises even more mildly interesting history. Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 23, The Unexpected Swordplay. Asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back to another beautiful night of mildly intriguing historical hijinks. Tonight, we're diving deeper into the chaotic battlefield of politics, swordplay, and the kind of backstabbing you'd expect only from a daytime soap opera. It's 193 AD, and it feels more convoluted than trying to assemble IKEA furniture while blindfolded. So, make yourself comfortable, perhaps grab a snack that doesn't involve dubious historical ingredients like roasted grubs, and prepare for an evening filled with history that's as chaotic as ordering a latte in ancient Rome. But first, let's take a moment to ponder. What goes through an emperor's mind when he realizes he's about to be rather dramatically assassinated? Do you think he wishes he had taken that vacation to the peaceful seaside villa instead of piecing together a reform agenda And how do you politely tell your bodyguards to take a break without putting your head on the chopping block quite literally? Maybe it's too late for a career change. Or perhaps he just wishes to be a humble fishmonger instead. What if Pertinax just wants to open a sushi bar to escape all this madness? Well, grab your warmest blanket, dim those lights, and close your eyes as we slip into ancient Rome, where you've just woken up in the heart of the imperial palace, a place filled with both elegance and the scent of intense agitation. Like expired fish mingling with freshly polished marble, the air is tense and electric, the perfect environment for an uprising that, much like a poorly arranged family reunion, could end in absolute chaos. You feel the weighty silence pressing down around you, thick enough to cut with a dagger, as you try to blend seamlessly into the surroundings, or at least not trip on that extravagant mosaic of battles and mythological figures underfoot. As you peek around the lavish column encrusted in gold leaf, because what's luxury without a hint of display? You catch sight of the Praetorian Guard, those so-called elite soldiers who seem to resemble a confused gang more than an organized military unit. Clumsily shuffling their armor, they look like a group of toddlers about to embark on their first school play real earnestness, tied up in absolute chaos. Where's that Pertinax guy? One of them whispers, clearly not up to speed with the information that the Emperor is, well, kind of in the room. With bewildered expressions, they fumble around the atrium as if trying to find a missing sock, misplaced amongst the lavish decor and perhaps a bad decision or two. Do you think he's hiding behind the fruit platter again? Another mutters, gripping his spear like it's an oversized lollipop connected to a dream of glory. And perhaps, in another universe, Pertinax is indeed hiding behind a magnificent fruit display, contemplating how many types of apples he could bake into a pie while avoiding being stabbed. Quite the culinary diversion, but sadly, not practical. Against this backdrop of confused warriors and fancy decorations, you spot Pertinax. This guy looks like he'd have fit right in at any awkward dinner party. You'd almost think he just sat down with a glass of wine after a long day. But instead, here he is, trying to maintain composure in front of a group of grumpy soldiers ready to take matters into their own hands. Truly, he's trying his best. What a remarkable testament to perseverance. Gentlemen, he booms, as if trying to order pizza on a busy Friday night. Let us engage in diplomatic discussions. Now, you have to imagine the scene. His booming voice bounces off the walls like a reluctant rubber ball in a small room, the guards chuckling as if they've just heard the worst dad joke ever. Diplomatic discussions? One of the soldiers snorts. Buddy, this isn't a town hall meeting. We're not here for a TED talk. And as if on cue, one soldier stumbles back, accidentally poking his buddy with a spear. Oops, my bad. You okay? I almost stabbed my best friend guest that would make it a spurious issue, huh? Their laughter echoes through the atrium like a really bad sitcom, and you can't help but feel that history has a wicked sense of irony. Pertinax, now caught in this swirl of absurdity, realizes he's not equipped with the sharp repartee necessary to disarm his assailants literally. Can I offer you a larger ration, a reassessment of the grand direction of the Roman Empire? We can totally talk about mortuary expenses, but wait. I forgot to mention the benefits of free popcorn. As they roll their eyes and chuckle, you wonder if anyone ever thought about just tossing in a few snacks to lighten the mood. Would that make them more inclined to spare his life, or at least slow down the impending chaos? Paradoxically, the Emperor's negotiation skills seem to have fallen as flat as an undercooked souffle. Ironically, as he wiggles around trying to sway the crowd, the soldiers seem to be warming up to the idea. Perhaps a round of gladiatorial games could be fun too. Then again, that's what they wanted, a good old-fashioned brawl in which they could flex their muscles and channel their inner Roman warriors. Suddenly, out of nowhere, and with the finesse of a sloth on roller skates, one Praetorian leaps forward with no regard for the entire situation. Time slows, and as he unsheathes his sword, the moment becomes tragically dramatic. With a swift strike that echoes throughout the grand corridor, Pertinax falls to the mosaic floor with all the dignity of a toppled statue, his momentum propelled not by grace but rather sheer misunderstanding. You can almost hear the potential for Shakespearean tragedy in the background, accompanied by dramatic music, while the guards exchange looks of utter disbelief, suddenly feeling less like the elite they profess to be and more like stars cast in a farcical performance. As silence envelops the room, the realization hits harder than a 2-ton elephant on roller skates. This is indeed the end of the Pertinax experiment. A short reign long remembered for its earnest attempts to do good. The guards are left standing in shock over the consequences of their actions, wondering if they had perhaps misprioritized their decision-making process, along with their snacking choices. And just like that, you find yourself transported into the annals of history where chaos reigns supreme, and the unpredictability of fate leaves you wondering what on earth just happened. Ah, history, the best comedy of errors, where even the most tragic moments can lead to unexpected laughter. And here, dear listener, we remember that the past is rarely boring and is often downright absurd. Perhaps a lesson for us all. As the dust settles, take a deep breath and let the absurdity wash over you like a warm bath of melted chocolate. Tomorrow, let's dive further into the year of the 5 emperors and explore how one man's demise can set off a comedic chain reaction of unexpected changes. Asterisk, asterisk, chapter 24, the Headless Wonder Parade, asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys! Welcome back to another night of mildly interesting historical shenanigans, where we dive into tales that make you grateful for modern times. Tonight, we're flinging ourselves into the turbulent turmoil of 193 AD, a year so wild it makes a family reunion in a clown car seem pedestrian. This is the year of the 5 emperors, where leadership changes faster than your favorite coffee blend's trendy names. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to wake up one morning as an emperor, only to have your day ruined by a surprise visit from a group of disgruntled soldiers wielding weapons like toddlers throw tantrums? Or how about the pressure of choosing a breakfast that won't lead to a potential coup? You could go with roasted figs, or take the risk with the questionable leftovers from last night's feast. What if they decide your cooking is worse than being stabbed? So settle in. Perhaps grab a less dubious snack than mystery meat on a stick, and dim the lights. Trust me, you don't want to witness the history we're about to cover in full brightness. Imagine yourself lounging in your modern cozy bed, but instead you're wrapped in a toga made from whatever fabric your ancestor thought looked fancy that day. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the heart of ancient Rome, and oh boy, are you in for a treat or a trick, depending on how you interpret Roman hospitality. Now that we're all snugly and comfortably confused in this ancient setting, let's talk about something particularly gruesome: the aftermath of Emperor Pertinax's dramatic exit. Picture the streets of Rome, bustling with the energy of a Saturday morning market, but instead of fresh produce, they're displaying something truly grisly, because nothing says stable leadership quite like a severed head on a pike. You open your eyes to see an uproarious crowd gathering near the forum. The scent of fresh bread lingers in the air, yet it's overshadowed by a hint of something decidedly less appetizing, like ancient fish gone terribly, terribly wrong. The very type of smell that makes you question every life decision you've ever made. You're swept into the scene, not literally, thankfully, or you'd be considered a casualty of absurdity rather than an observer of history. Look, a literal head on a stick. A nearby vendor shouts, waving his arms as though he's trying to sell you the latest iPhone model. Only 5 denarii. Perfect for your mantelpiece. There's a slick sense of promotion here, as if the streets of Rome had just turned into a bizarre episode of a takeout reality show. You shake your head in disbelief, thinking, can you imagine trying to explain this at dinner? Oh, this? Just some leftovers from last week's political debate. The crowd buzzes like a beehive in a caffeine-fueled frenzy, many trying to capture the moment on their smartphones. Oh, wait! History hasn't invented those yet. Instead, they're probably using pottery fragments to etch out their very own social media moment for centuries to come. Number imperial instability takes a whole new meaning here. What you witness is nothing less than a macabre carnival of sorts, full of gory attractions that include guess what color my toga is now, and tyranny toss. It's like a reality show society that can't decide if it wants to create meaningful history or simply burn everything down while making memes that would baffle historians in the centuries to come. People are gawking and laughing in the same breath as they point at Pertinax's actual bloodied head, and a part of you wonders if they ever considered that this might be, less than respectful. But hey, when life gives you chaos, you throw the best headless wonder parade you can muster. In the center of the fray, a group of soldiers laughs and jostles one another as they lift the pike higher. Will it be a pass, a slam dunk, a final tribute fostering absolute imperial condemnation? It's hard to tell who's more shocked, the spectators or the poor janitor who's now faced with sweeping this mess once the revelry dies down. Victory. One soldier roars while posing dramatically like a very poorly executed sculpture. Pertinax, the man who peaked too soon, lasted only 3 months, but boy was he good at making enemies. 3 months, huh? You think. I can't keep a houseplant alive for that long. The absurdity spirals on as you realize that the one reliable thing about being emperor in this chaotic time is your remarkably swift fall from grace. A lesson for the ages, best summarized by the phrase, never trust a toga-wearing mob. As the crowd begins to dissipate, giggles interspersed with mock sobs echo through the streets. You can't help but think of poor Pertinax. If only he'd known that perhaps taking a few improv classes would have prepared him better for the art of disarming a hostile audience. With the sun setting behind you and the perfect backdrop of chaos floating like a captivating painting, you let this odd mix of absurdity wash over you. Sleep comes easier as you dream of hats that help you blend into crowds or strategies to avoid pikes and other pointy objects. Tomorrow, we'll dig deeper into this whirlwind year where empires tumble and laughter reigns supreme in the face of folly. Sleep tight and remember, if history teaches us anything, it's to always keep your head and possibly your distance from angry soldiers. Asterisk, asterisk, chapter 25, the great Roman auction house of 193 AD, asterisk, asterisk. Hey guys, welcome back to our little corner of mildly interesting history, where the past is both a treasure trove and a dumpster fire, a true archaeological prize. Tonight, we're diving deep into 193 AD. Yes, that's right, a year so hilariously chaotic it makes a sitcom's final episode look like a delightful nap. This year is famously known as the Year of the Five Emperors, a time when Roman leadership was changing faster than your neighbor's seasonal door wreath. I mean, who needs stability when you can have complete pandemonium, right? Imagine this. What if you woke up one day in the heart of the Roman Empire and your breakfast options were either moldy bread or the disappointment of having never learned to curb your procrastination? Or how about choosing whether to have a nice back and forth debate with your boss, or ending up in a gladiatorial arena screaming for mercy? Either way, you're in a really tight spot, and that's before we even bring out the silent auction paddles. So, grab a pillow, dim those lights a smidge, and prepare for the laughable and lovable madness of antiquity. Before we drift into history, ask yourself, what if your biggest risk at the brunch table was choosing the non-syrup drenched waffle? Ever wondered how it feels to be part of a coup, musical chairs style? Or how about being the highest bidder in a frantic auction for an empire that quite literally comes with its own batch of crazy? Spoiler alert, it's not as fun as it sounds. Congratulations. You've just woken up in 193 AD in the heart of Rome, a city alive with chaos and the faint, decidedly unromantic aroma of roasted chestnuts mingled with the unfortunate stench of mismanaged public hygiene. Good luck dodging both the barracks and the banquets. Let's set the stage, shall we? You're lounging in what could generously be termed a mansion, but really feels more like a confused renovation project on a game show. You glance out the window and see Roman citizens swirling about like a wild flock of slightly disgruntled geese, a motley crew of merchants catching your eye, attempting to hawk their wares with the enthusiasm of contestants from a poorly thought-out daytime reality show. And just when you think it couldn't get any weirder, there's a gathering at the forum, teeming with excitement and anticipation. You wander closer to the commotion, and your heart races at the sight of an auction. Oh yes, that's right. It appears today's main event is none other than the imperially sanctioned sale of, drumroll please, the title of Emperor of Rome itself. Picture this, a row of Praetorian guards, the elite forces so stoic you'd think they were auditioning for a statue-enhancing infomercial. And there, front and center, is Didius Julianus, a man whose confidence outmatches any of his fellow bidders by several orders of magnitude, standing there clutching a bag of gold like a kid clutching the last piece of candy at a summer camp. A true collector's item. Rome came with a steep price, and Didius was ready to pay. As the auctioneer, a rather enthusiastic fellow sporting a toga only slightly more extravagant than a sumo wrestler's waistline, calls out, "Going once, going twice," the crowd becomes frenetic, like a flock of seagulls fighting over scraps at the beach. What's it going to be, folks? Forever to be remembered in history? Or thrown to the annals of weird facts? You can practically hear the brick-by-brick construction of the future internet memes. So, what if your emperor could be bought at a garage sale? You raise your eyebrows at the idea, the bidding spirals higher, and you nearly choke on your overpriced lunch when Didius dramatically raises the stakes, tossing in an extra bag of denarii, claiming it's filled with the exquisite imported olive oil that no one actually wants unless they're throwing the fanciest toga party in the neighborhood. And just like that, Mesoamerican auctions seem like child's play. You might think, how strange. We've traded emperors like Pokemon cards. But, alas, this was simply the backdrop to the tragic absurdity of the Roman experience. Who wouldn't want to wake up and claim their seat in a reality show that turns political power into a game of luck? It's like the worst version of Monopoly combined with a high-stakes poker game if the poker chips were actual human lives instead of cardboard and dreams. As the auction continues, the Praetorian Guards are trying to figure out whether their uniforms are more befitting for a fashion show or a bloodbath. They give the impression of formidable guardians, except in the midst of a negotiation, they always look just a bit too ready for the nearest open buffet. With every bid, there's tension in the air thick enough to cut with a plastic knife. Just then, the hammer comes crashing down, not literally, of course. That's eventually top tier for governance. And at last, Didius Julianus, proudly, maybe a little too proudly, proclaims himself the new emperor. You can practically feel history's collective eye roll echoing through the ages. And as you stroll back through the bustling streets of Rome, contemplating the day's entertainment, you can't help but wonder about the implications of auctioning off leadership. Somewhere in the back of your mind, the quiet realization dawns that if emperors can be sold at a price, then so can dreams, destinies, and maybe even your will to ever make a salad again. So here's to soft beds, and feeling thankful for the drama-free days of modern living, where the only auctions happening are for pretty decor and not political power. Sleep gently, and remember, if you ever find yourself on the cusp of a chaotic auction, just remember to always read the fine print. Tomorrow, we'll dive deeper into whose turn it is to get the toga. Politics, happiness, and the glorious absurdities of ancient Rome await. And now, as the torches of ancient Rome dim in the distance, as marble fades back into shadow and the footsteps of emperors soften into silence, let your breath slow, let your mind grow quiet, and let the weight of history settle gently around you. Tonight, we walked beside a man who should never have risen as high as he did, a boy born into a life meant for labor, who climbed through grit, discipline, and relentless endurance into the impossible, the throne of the empire that ruled the world. We saw the hardships he carried, the exhaustion pressed into every crease of his marble likeness, the battles fought not on grand fields, but in training yards, lonely outposts, and senate chambers ready to devour anyone who dared hope for change. We felt the quiet courage of a life spent proving again and again that where you begin does not decide where you may stand. And through all the chaos, through betrayal, duty, ambition, and the sharp humor of surviving a very dramatic empire, there was resilience. A stubborn, steady pulse of humanity that kept Pertinax moving forward even when Rome itself seemed determined to break him. There's something deeply comforting in that. The reminder that human strength is not always loud or glorious. Sometimes it is quiet, sometimes it is tired, sometimes it is simply the refusal to stop. So now, as you lie in your warm bed, a luxury emperors could hardly dream of, take a moment to be grateful for the peace around you. No scheming senate, no collapsing empire, no marble expectations weighing on your shoulders. Just rest. Let the past fade, let your body loosen, let the night take you gently. You've done enough, you're safe. Close your eyes and drift softly into sleep.